Hello, everyone. Everybody would like to take a seat?
Oh, you're saying that actually water?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Checkpoint. My name is Jordan Sparks. I am executive of the Game Makers Union. I'm also their PR, and next year the co-VP. We are a Game Makers Union and Gamer who are partnering to bring you Checkpoint, a game industry career night, in order to bring you guest speakers from the game industry, including these guys, except for Get Set, because unfortunately they had to cancel on us earlier today. But anyway, Game Makers Union and Gamer were created to make a community at Ryerson for people who like games as well as people who want to make games. And that's what we've been trying to do. Our club takes care of trying to teach people how to make games. We have Game Makers Union doing tutorials as well as making game jams and fostering a community at Ryerson where we have no game program. And Gamer takes place on the other side of the spectrum where they try to cultivate everybody's love of games and have everybody talking and communicating to each other as well as having fun. So this entire event came through because we wanted to bring the game industry to Ryerson. And what better way to do that than bring these wonderful guest speakers over to talk to students. And I'm going to introduce you to them now. First, we have, for Social Game Universe, we have Nathan Gunn. And from Untold we have Brian Creighton. From 3DI, we have Dan Stopnicki. From ARB Labs, we have Adrian Bulzaki, who was here a few minutes ago and suddenly disappeared. And later on, we have Fernando Restituto, who is coming in. He's a indie developer, and he's just running a little bit late right now, but he will be here and he will be presenting later on tonight. So I'm just going to be quiet now, and I'm going to let our guest speakers speak. Starting off with Ryan Creighton from Untold Entertainment.
Thank you, Jordan. So, we've got 20 minutes to talk. I go famously over time all the time, so you just got to be this guy, right? My name is Ryan Creighton, and I run a small game development studio in Toronto, down at Queen and Spadina, called Untold Entertainment. So I'll tell you just a tiny smidge about my history, I'll show you the thing I'm working on, and then the rest of it is all about you guys. So I used to work at Chorus Entertainment, which is a big media conglomerate in town that you might have heard of. They own the W Network and CMT and Treehouse TV and YTV. So I was working on their interactive department, which is about 40 people at large. And we used to build things for, here's how it worked. When people wanted to advertise on YTV, it was usually, who's watched YTV? Like, you know what I'm talking about, sugar cereals, right? So it's Lucky Charms, and it's, you know, whatever crummy toy somebody's trying to push. So these customers would come to the salespeople of YTV and they'd say, oh, let's do a $1 million ad buy. And then they would say, oh, you know, for a little bit of extra money, and they were really talking about a little bit of extra money, you could do a web campaign. They're like, okay, whatever, sure, it's pocket change. And then they say, well, you know, if you do your web campaign, kids these days really like games. So if you put in like a little bit more money, and we really are talking about a little bit more money at this point, you can do like a game based on your crappy Lucky Charms or toy or whatever you want. And they say, sure, that's great. And then I'm the guy who builds that game. Right, so I was there for about 7.5 years, and I built 50 games while I was there, and they were all web games built in Flash, written in ActionScript 1, and then ActionScript 2, and then ActionScript 3, because we're spanning from 2000 to 2007, right? Yeah, Flash. So God rest its soul. So that's kind of how I got my start. And it was really interesting because I didn't take, I mean, Jordan mentioned that there's no game program at Ryerson, and it's weird because who's a student at Ryerson right now in this room? And then who is like a stowaway and snuck in here because they heard it was going to be cool? Nobody. Oh, okay. Somebody. That's great. Who was at the Level Up show last night? I want to know that too. Yeah, there's a common thread here. There's a Level Up stowaway sneaking in the room. Okay, that's cool. I'm glad you guys came. So there's no game program here at Ryerson. We haven't heard a lot from Ryerson. We've heard a lot from a lot of the schools, and I try to get really deeply, probably too involved with the schools around town because I really, really want there to be great programs. Because I didn't take one. I went to a school north of the city, very near another university in the school, and I took what was then called their illustration-technical program. And it was called illustration dash. You were, yeah, you know that you were in that one. Oh my God, that's great. Were you in my class?
I don't know.
What was your graduating year?
2000?
No, I was 97, so pretty close though, right? So were they at the strip mall?
No, we first year.
Just yeah. So when I was there, we were at this strip mall that was across from like a peeler bar, right? And it was like the worst place you could ever go to school. Unless you like peeler bars, I mean that's okay. But you know, guys would come back and they'd be like totally soused from going to the peeler bar at lunch, which was open at lunch. That's pretty wrong too. And they were just, you know, it was an awful. I hate it. It was the worst. It was the strip bar. It was like where you'd find like a Curves, you know, that like workouts place for like middle-aged women. It was like one of those places, right? And that's where we were going to school. It was called illustration-technical because the concept of video games and 3D animation and modeling, I mean, they have ministry requirements and they hadn't caught up with that yet. So technical illustration was really when you use like a mechanical pencil to draft like car designs or architectural designs. So, you know, this is kind of dinosaur stuff. So this is like 96, 97. There was one program, one course in that program that was interactive based. We used Macromedia Director and a language called Lingo, and it was like, you know, click on these things and make your animations happen. And I thought, man, I'd been trying to build games for my entire life, but the thing that always stopped me was syntax on languages. I could never figure it out. And I didn't have a dad, and dads were kind of the thing that got you into programming, because dads would talk to other dads and they would teach you and they'd bring you home books and pirated games at that time. No dad, so I was not in the dad network. So I couldn't figure out programming. And I would buy these books and I'd type up, you know, the first, they'd throw 3 pages of code at you, you type it up immaculately, and then it wouldn't build or compile. And there's nothing you can do. There's no internet you can look at. There's no dads to talk to. So right, I couldn't build a game. So with this Lingo thing, with this director thing, I built not a game, but a little thing that linked a couple of my animations together. And people liked it. They said it was funny and cool and cute, or whatever. So flash forward 2 years, as I'm out of school, and I've spent 2 years trying to get a job and having absolutely no luck. And I finally just relented and went back to university and gave up. And I thought, I don't know, I'll take film or some nonsense. So it was pretty bad. And then like I hit rock, like going to university, sorry guys, that's rock bottom for me. That's like the worst place I could ever possibly hope to be. I thought, man, as long as I've sort of sucked it up and I've gone to university, I'll do the next worst thing I could probably think of for the summer and plant trees in Thunder Bay. My summer job, right? Because I thought, like, I'm status quo now, I've sold out the man, gotta go plant trees in Thunder Bay. So I was looking at Monster, which is a job board, I think it's still around, and like then it was like lousy, like the jobs were the worst. And this job came up and it said, you know, we're looking for game development. I'm like, yeah, right, you are, this is insane. That's no way this great job is on Monster. And I looked and it looked legit, and it was YTV wanting people to build games in Flash. I had never used Flash. I didn't even really quite get what Flash was. But by cracky, I found out. So I looked it up, and by that time the internet was a thing that kind of existed. So I looked up what Flash was, and it's like, oh, okay, so it's this program, and you build content, and it runs really fast in the browser, and they've got a 30-day free trial. Well, I'm all about that, so I downloaded the 30-day free trial, thought, shoot, what am I going to build to show these guys that I can do stuff? So I grabbed that thing that I made in school 2 years earlier, I had all the assets built, and I rebuilt it in Flash. It was pretty simple, it was just button clicks and stuff. It wasn't a game. Let me tell you, it was not a game. It was just sort of like you know what? Let me show it to you. Just a second here. Not a game at all. So you're going to be, oh, that's my daughter's school. That's nice. It's cool. They tweet out from grade 1.
What?
Yeah, cool, eh? You guys aren't Twitter haters, I hope. All right, this was the thing. This is super annoying. So you click to that. So this was sort of to demonstrate 5 different types of animation that you could do in Director. So you click on Baby Rodney here. Baby Edward, there you go. Right, Baby Earl. Baby Norman. right? So a bunch of different ways to make babies bounce on the screen. That's all I had. That's all I had. I had that, and I had like a really crap demo reel, and I showed up, and I didn't know what to dress for a job interview at YTV, so I went shopping with my friend that morning, and I bought this really loud orange shirt and a Hawaiian shirt to put on top of that, a pair of cargo shorts, and some sandals, and that's how I went to the interview. And my cover letter was ridiculous, like over the top, insane. And I went in for this interview, and I showed them my reel, and they're like, "Yeah, okay." you got anything else? And I'm like, well, let me show you my interactive stuff. I did this in Flash, and I showed it like last night, but I didn't tell them. And I showed this thing to them, and they're like, hey, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then the other, like, so many things went right during that interview. They were like, what's your favorite show on YTV? And I was, 20-something years old and a giant loser who just watched YTV all day. So I told them what my favorite show was. I'm like, that's awesome. And they said, do you maybe like any of the games that are on YTV? Like, what's your favorite game on YTV? And totally fishing. And I played games on YTV too. So I told them what my favorite game on YTV was. And it was the game that the guy who was interviewing me had made. So like, yeah, right? So, it was the coolest. It was the coolest interview. Everything went so right. And after 2 years of just hearing no's and door slamming, and even worse, hearing yeses that were lies. Like I had a guy show me around an office saying, hey, this is where you're going to be sitting, and introduce me to a bunch of people saying, these are the people you're going to be working with. Shake hands, shake hands, shake hands. No return phone call. Like it's just sucked. So after all of that, the lady called me up like a week later, and she said, hey, I wonder if you want to come work with us at YTV. And I cried. I said, oh my God, lady, you changed my life. You don't know. And she really did. So I worked there for 7.5 years, and then I left. Because it was a great job to start off with, but towards the end, you can sort of outgrow things. Started my own company, Untold Entertainment. Now, there are two kind of things you can do when you own a company. You can be a service company, or you can be a product company, or you can be a mix of both, which is kind of the best thing to be. So I started out as a service company. So all the people I worked with at YTV left and went to other companies, and they did stuff, and then they knew me because they worked with me years before. So when I left and became a free agent, they would give me their work. So it transformed from doing Lucky Charms stuff to doing games based on kids' TV shows, still on the web, still in Flash, but it would be stuff like, you watch, the big secret is in this town, nothing gets made without benefit of government funding. Not a single TV show, game, book. Am I lying here, Nathan, or that's the truth, right? Everything's government funded, so what these TV producers do is they go get this money called from something called the Bell Fund, and the Bell Fund requires them to also commission or purchase interactive content to go with the TV show. So that's a website, that's games, that's web video and stuff like that. So they come to a vendor like me, they say, we've got this show, we don't get games, we need a game or else we don't get the money, so make a game. But it's a really tough road because they get, say they get this much money and this much money is for interactive, and they really want to build TV shows because they're TV people. So then they eat this much money for their producer, which really goes to the TV show. I'm figuring. So this much money is left to me. So it's really tough road to hoe in Canada. The other thing that I didn't know is that I assume a lot of you, and I'm going to find out soon, want to make games, and you want to make games that are really good. But the system in Canada is really interesting because they don't reward quality, like they don't reward good things, they reward things that exist, right? So the litmus test for whether you were successful on one of these projects is not, is it a good game, checkbox, it's, is it a game, right, checkbox. That's how they decide, right? So, and that took me a number of years to learn, and I was knocking myself out trying to make the best stuff I possibly can under these really tight budgets, but the realization I came to was just they don't care. It doesn't matter if the audience likes it. They don't measure plays. They don't measure retention or any of the metrics that Nathan's going to probably talk to you about. All they care is that the money was spent and that a thing was made. See you later, right? So, to that, I'm trying to transition to a product company and away from a service company because it's a tiny bit soul crushing for a creative guy who really wants to have a lot of input and create really cool, neat things. So I want to show you one really cool, neat thing. I'll show you two. Two really cool, neat things. Whoa, babies, hello. Babies. Has anybody here played Sissy's Magical Ponycorn Adventure? Oh, wicked, you guys are in luck. So you'll be bored, you can snooze for the next 3 minutes. So I made this game called Sissy's Magical Ponycorn Adventure at a game jam. Jordan mentioned, there he is. mentioned that you guys are going to be doing game jams. There's one big one that happens in the city every year called Toe Jam. and it's phenomenal. I usually work alone at Toe Jam, but 2 years ago, I decided to bring my 5-year-old daughter with me and work on a game with her, because her drawings are cute, she's adorable, and I didn't want to spend a whole weekend away from my family. So I brought her along, and we made this game called Sissy's Magical Toy Adventure. And I'll just show you the first, few seconds of the thing, so you'll get an idea. As soon as it loads. So the neat thing about this was she, oh, there it goes. Yeah, there you go.
This is magical pony for the fencer. Hi, my name's Sissy, and I think you love ponycorn. They're the best thing in the world because they're like ponies and unicorns. The ponycorn! I don't have any ponycorns right now, so I'm gonna go get some. Come with me as my magical ponycorn adventure. I can go to Rainbow to visit new places.
So Cassie did all the voiceover for the game except for the non-little girl characters, and she drew all the graphics, and I sort of cut them out and animated them in an adventure game engine that we built. So you can point and click.
That's not a ponycorn, it's go on a pole. That's weird.
So going on the pole, right, is like a required element of Toe Jam, and so everyone thought, wow, that's straight out of a little girl's imagination. Not really. So we'll talk about characters.
Hi, Orange Fly. My name's Sissy. Do you like ponycorn? Me too. Got any dogs? Thanks. If I find any ponycorns, I'll put them in these dogs.
Oh, one more.
I see new rainbows.
I'm an evil lemon.
Lemon.
I will put lemon juice in your eye, and that stings.
Oh no, what will I do?
What will she do? Well, I'll leave you to find out. So play Sissy's Magical Toy Adventure. Anyway, that thing was really cool because it super blew up for us. We got local press, then we got provincial press, and then we got federal press. Like Cassie and I were on Canada AM. And then, it hit all like the game magazines, like PC Magazine and then Kotaku. I said game magazines. It hit Kotaku, it hit Joystick and all these crazy ones. And then it went like overseas. It was in a Spanish magazine. It was in a Japanese newspaper. There was a guy who dressed up as the game at a comic book convention that were at Anime North that weekend. It was ridiculous. People were like putting references to it in their games. It went crazy, go nuts. And then we did a TED Talk. Like last fall, I took my now 6-year-old, now 7, but then 6-year-old daughter on stage and we did this TEDx talk here in Toronto. So that was really cool. I have nothing more to say about that. But I will show you the trailer for the new thing that we're working on because we're mega excited. And this guy's going to do some promoting of his stuff, so I thought I could get away with it. Here we go. What am I going to show you? Yes, this thing. This thing is called Spolerium. And what it is a... do you guys, if I say graphic adventure game or point and click graphic adventure game, you guys know what I'm talking about? And then say no if you don't. No idea. Yeah, Space Quest, Police Quest, Heroes Quest, Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Leisure Suit Larry, Secret Monkey Island. I went to actually GDC last week, which is in San Francisco, which is the big. There's me with my button. There's me walking around GDC with my giant ask me about Spolerium button. Best $7 I ever spent in my life. Right, promotional, and we'll go to video. And I'll just show you the trailer, and then I'll tell you what's up with this. It's gonna be. I looked this up before I came. No, it's not there. Sorry, guys. Premiere. Yes, you're right.
One day this will all go down. One day this will all come crashing right down. So go on with your life. We will bring you down.
But the cool thing about that, so it's a mashup game. If you play Puzzle Quest, Puzzle Quest was a mashup of RPG stuff and Bejeweled. And I thought, no more. They've heard enough. They've heard enough. So I thought that was a really cool concept, this mashup game. And the older you get, and this is something that I wanted to spend my last brutal 5 minutes talking to you about, is the older you get, the more your tastes change. So right now, you may think that you want to get into the game industry, but if you do a little more research, you might find you'll hear about this thing called crunch. And crunch is where they're like, oh, it's cool, the office is totally cool, we'll feed you breakfast and lunch and dinner, so you never leave the office, right? We'll work you to the bone. You'll be working till 9, 10, 11, midnight, every night, trying to get this thing out the door. And that might sound awesome to you. It might sound awesome to sleep under your desk because you're working on games, and that's really cool. When you're a mom or a dad of 3 kids, or maybe you don't have kids, you just have a life to lead, when you're a little bit older, that might not sound quite as awesome. So, where was I going with this? I don't even know.
Your tastes change?
Your tastes change. So the reason I did this mashup game is because your tastes change. So I can't sit down in front of an 80-hour game anymore, just mashing the A button until I win, right? I can't do it, right? I have kids, I have responsibilities. I can squeeze out like maybe a song in a rock band, and I can definitely squeeze out 1 or 2 things while I'm with the iPad in the can, coarsely. But it's great when I can pick up a game and play it on the go. So I wanted to make games for old dudes like me whose tastes change and whose lives change. But when you're thinking about the game industry and how exciting and fun it might be, just consider, and I spend a lot of time thinking about this, you're going to be old one day. You're going to be old. Your eyes might go. So if you're an artist staring at, radiating screen just blasting into your retinas all day long, consider that. Consider how troll-shaped and chubby you're going to be like me when you're sitting at a desk the whole time, just, getting that claw thing going on. Consider, there are a number of health issues, there are a number of social issues, and then if you look at things like big company versus small company, it's a whole different set of problems between the two. If you're a small company, you might not have a pension. Like, we're not paying into CPP or EI and not storing any money away. So I'm probably going to be 76 years old in a box somewhere, when it comes to that point, right? So it's just another thing to consider. When you're at a big company, I mean, if you really want to make games because you have all these great ideas, and we all do, to make games, when you're at a big company, you're not really in the idea-generating business. You're in the business of sitting down and doing what that guy tells you to do for 12 hours a day. So they say, the joke is, at the big studios, you're like, you don't model characters, you model toes, right? You're the ogre toe modeler for the next 4 years, right? So a big company is a bit like that. Small company is a bit like you wear lots of hats, right? You wear the creative hat, the artist hat, the programmer hat sometimes, but also the garbage man hat. I washed dishes before I went to GDC, right? So you have to do a lot of that stuff. So it's a real mix of this and that. The analogy I always use is, and everyone talks to me and say, oh man, you're a game developer. That must be the coolest job in the world. You get to play games all day. When of course, you don't get to play games all day, you're making games, which is a very different thing than playing games. And if your job is to play games all day because you're a tester, you're not playing games all day, you're playing game all day, right? Which is a vastly different thing. And the analogy I like to use is it's like a cake factory. Everyone's like, oh man, I totally love cake. You work at a cake factory? That must be the greatest job in the world. Who doesn't love cake? Well, the guy or girl who's on the factory floor all goddamn day making cake is maybe the person who doesn't really like cake all that much. So I don't mean to be Mr. Downer. I was actually supposed to do a completely different talk and talk to you about tools. So really quickly, with our remaining, minute and a half? Minute and a half, that's cool. I can blaze right through it. Who wants to make games? Hands down, who's an artist? Hands down, who's a programmer? Hands down, who's both? Whoa. So what I'd like to see is more heads going on both, because if you said you're an artist, you're a little bit hosed. If you're an artist, you can't do stuff. If you're a programmer, you can make crappy art and make a working game. But if you're an artist who can't do anything beyond make pretty pictures, you can't. Well, you're gonna say, well, what about Unity? I don't know. What about writers? Oh, writers are totally hosed. Yeah, forget those. Yeah, writers. There's a couple of types of roles in this industry that are kind of like, it's brutal to say it, but oh man, if there's any in the room, I'm so sorry. How do I say it? All right, they're a little bit like cockroaches. I every day get a message from a composer. Every single day. So is anyone a composer in the room or music kind of person? Sorry, after I say that, right? Not me. But the music guys and girls are really trying to get into this business really, really hard, and there's a bazillion of them and not a whole lot of stuff to differentiate them. Writers, it's the same kind of thing. When I meet people and I'm like, oh, what do you do? It's like, oh, I'm a writer. It's kind of like saying, oh, I'm an idea guy, but I can't make anything happen, right? So the really crucial part is to make things happen. What are some of the technologies you can use to make things happen? Well, I prescribe 4 things for successful students or people sort of breaking into this industry. The 4 things are, here they are, and I hope I remember them. The first thing, a game. I remember. So if you are in a game development program and you graduate without a game, get your money back, because that was the whole point. You need a game, preferably, in my preference, is playable in the browser. So I believe that you need to use a technology that makes your game playable in the browser. So Unity, you're asking which technologies? Yeah, Unity, Flash, even Java, you can do something with Twine, yes sir?
Unreal 3 is now actually able to work in browser with Mozilla Firefox.
Well, fantastic.
So
that would be a good
you
one.
can now do Unreal 3.
Fantastic, and you can do, even targeting Flash Player with Unity, you can do some pretty impressive stuff in there. Don't believe the hype that you've heard about the incapabilities of in-browser stuff. The reason why I say playable in browser is because picture you're a dude running a business and you want to hire some people, and this kid out of school has this. He says, oh, play my game, and there's this like dodgy link to an exe, and it's it's only an 8,000 meg download, and you're like, I don't know, and you click on it. There's not a proper installer written. It takes half an hour to pull down. If you can just open up, if you just click on the link, browser opens up, you're playing the game, that's really the best thing for you to get your name out there. Now, it depends, of course, on what kind of job you're going for, but I really firmly believe in playable in browser stuff. So a game, at least one game, playable in the browser, with business cards, with your name on them and a link to where they can play the game in the browser. Why those are so important is because when we went to the Level Up show last night, if I liked anything, which I kind of didn't, but if I had liked anything, they would just be able to say, yeah, here's me, check me out, there's where you can see the game, show it to your friends, and it's beautiful and amazing. So I don't know what the 4th one is, but I will tell you, I don't actually read resumes. The very first thing I look at when you're an artist or an animator or even a game developer, a programmer, I look at your stuff first, right? And I don't care if you worked at Kmart, for 5 years, or if you went to Waterloo for comp sci for 4. It really doesn't matter to me, because in this industry, it's he who executes, he or she who executes wins. So execution is the whole thing. You've got a billion ideas, that's cool, we all have ideas. If you can execute those ideas and execute on them well and make a playable thing, that's really what you want to strive for. I'm done. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you, Ryan. That was very insightful. Also, play on the thing about business cards. Just so you guys know, we have business cards for the Game Makers Union as well as Gamer on the table over there if you guys want to take any. And also, what you said about Crunch,
Yeah.
I kind of wish they had that for students, because we could just eat, we just stay here, eat, and work on our projects all day, instead of stay here, starve, and work on our projects all day.
Yeah, it's weird because you're paying to be here. I don't know.
New media is actually pretty close to what you're talking about, because my program, because we do code and arts.
I'm a big believer in it. Learn how to do many things.
Quick announcement. If there is an empty chair to your left, please move into it.
Yes, please.
We probably have more people than we expect.
Also, just one thing to say, Adrian is here and back in the white lab coat as well. Rob Segal from Get Set Games, who was previously announced not to be here, is here. So we will be talking later. For now, though, we are going to go on to our next guest, which is Mr. Nathan Gunn, who is a former Ryerson graduate and CEO of Social Gaming Universe. So, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, give me a sec to set up.
Just a little bit more.
Let's put another chair here.
Is there another one?
There's a stack somewhere nearby. There's one there.
People can't really get by.
There should be like 8 people I'm expecting to come at 5.
Yeah, but people can't really get by. Too many things right here.
Optimist. It's possible there's a lady.
No, I think I'm good.
How long are we talking?
So, Ryan's a hard act to follow. He's very entertaining.
I'm entirely sure.
He took a little survey at the start, though. I didn't catch a couple of things. I don't know if you asked it or if I was busy texting, but how many people, you said bunch aren't in from Ryerson. Were you spreading the word at the thing last night, or somebody was? Somebody was, okay.
A lot of us were spreading the word at Level Up Showcase.
Okay, that's cool. That's great. I'm glad you're here. So how many people actually are making games out professionally already? Like you are making games, somebody's paying you to make games. Anybody doing that? One person? A couple people? Few people? Okay. Any of you have your own companies, or are you doing it inside of companies, or you have your own companies? You do? Okay. Okay, and so how many people are students somewhere studying to do this? So, okay, so there are lots of people who are kind of doing it, but they're not students and they don't have jobs. So you're interested. You're in some other line of work? Yes? Okay, all right, cool. So I'd be interested, you know, I didn't prepare a fixed talk. What I can do is tell you a little about me and what we're building. We're really excited to tell people who want to make games a little bit about the tools that we're releasing. So if you're interested in those tools after you've heard about them, I've got Ryan. Do you want to just raise your hand? Ryan's our lead client-side guy. And Matt's sitting next to him. Raise your hand. Matt runs the studio at Social Game Universe. So one of the reasons we're here, that's true, I did go to school here, so it's kind of a nice, probably about 20 years ago, and I lived in residence. I was the first tenant in residence. They didn't have shower heads on the showers, they didn't have doorknobs on the doors, but it was a lot of fun. And I went to the media arts program, and I left Ryerson. I think I graduated in '94, something like that. But while I was at Ryerson, I started working at a local TV station. You probably all know City TV. I worked in the newsroom, and then in my second year or third year of university, while still at City, I started working with a couple of people to start the interactive division at City TV in 1995. So we're talking about the first websites really in Canada and the first digital stuff. We created a CD-ROM label, distributed CDs across the country. We did the first AOL areas back when AOL was those discs you got in the mail and you had to use them for your ISP. I don't know if any of you remember any of this stuff. Yeah, what's a disk? You know, that's actually funny. Do you know that little icon for floppy disk next to the word save that gets used in a lot of menus? They did a survey of this generation of computer users, and they know that's the icon for save, but they don't know that's a floppy disk. So I worked at City for a few years. We started the interactive division. I left, started a company called Bitcasters. We did a whole bunch of stuff. We started the new media division of a film company called Miramax. We did the first secure music format for Universal. I moved to New York for a few years. We did lots of really interesting stuff. I'm also director, did a bunch of music videos. We did a bunch of games for people like Disney, Family Channel, Cartoon Network. In 2009, we spun out Social Game Universe to focus on games where people could play together. We created some of the first games where you could interact with your friends in other games. So the first game we made at Social Game Universe was Hollywood Tycoon, where you ran a movie studio. And when we started making the game, we knew we needed actors and scripts to put together to make movies. So we made a tool to create actors, and my staff told me, well, making actors is more fun. This tool to make an actor is more fun than your stupid game of running the studio. So we said, okay, well, let's make a game where you make actors. So we called that Avastar, and you get to climb the ladder and be a big movie star. But what was unique about what we built was the fact that we connected the two games. So when you hired actors in Hollywood Tycoon, you were playing with your friends who were in a totally different game called Avastar. Because the actors who showed up in Hollywood Tycoon were the stars from Avastar. So that idea of interconnected games where different people could be playing totally different games, but still somehow interacting with their friends. I might like sim games, my friend might like racing games. That idea really drove me. I was really fascinated with the idea of interacting with my friends across different applications. So we built a platform for that. Some of the software that we wrote for that platform is actually now being built up as part of Lightning, which I'm going to tell you a little bit about. So that's sort of the journey that we took with Social Game Universe, and now we're spinning this product out. I think what I'm going to try and do, I'll show you a couple of things, and then
maybe I'll just open it up to questions. You guys want to ask me stuff. It's probably the easiest way to give you whatever it is that may be on your minds or of interest to you. The stuff you're looking at on the screen here, this is a 3D MMORPG called Stormhawks that we built for in partnership with a company called Nerdcore, which is an animated kid show on Cartoon Network around the world. We used a thing called Big World. We had 50,000 players. It was a massively multiplayer online game where you could race and battle and do all sorts of really kind of fun stuff. We did a series of games for Family Channel where you played the little kids who got stuck in detention the last day of school before summer, kind of like a 12-year-old Breakfast Club, if any of you know that movie. My references may be dated. So kids get stuck in detention, and your game was, the first game was an adventure game to get out of school. The next game was a summertime game. They did breakdancing. The next game was coming back to school to find things you did in the adventure game. You had poisoned the frogs, and they'd taken over the school, and you shot them with a pea shooter. And the last game was a snowball fight game. The games were so popular that actually the characters took off. We had 100,000 signed up kids in just a matter of about 4 or 5 weeks. So we ended up creating a spin-out TV series based on the characters called Serengio Bravo TV, where we had the animated characters interviewing celebrities like Avril Lavigne and so on. And then we actually created a live chat with them. This is all in 2000, 2001, something like that, where kids could come in over their webcams, talk to the animated characters, be guests on the show, and we live controlled the characters and had them doing interviews and so on. So some interesting projects over the years. I think that's that site. The latest stuff that we're doing, and I'll show you one of our recent social games. This is Dirty Dancing Romance Resort. So anybody in the room not know Dirty Dancing, the movie? Okay, good. Oh, there's one person?
No idea.
Really? That's amazing. Are you from Canada, North America? I have to say, my roommate in Ryerson was a guy doing astrophysics. He'd come from New York. Guy from a small village in India. He'd been living in New York in North America about 3 years by the time I met him. But he'd been so heads down in the books doing astrophysics. He didn't know Karate Kid, he didn't know Wall Street, didn't know Dirty Dancing, didn't know any of those movies. So while we were roommates, he'd rent those movies, and after each movie, he decided that's what he wanted to do for a career. So at one point, he had like a black belt, then he wanted to be a Wall Street trader, and he went through this whole thing, and then he saw something about Elvis, and he wanted to be a singer. Kind of fun. So this game, we actually were approached by Lionsgate's big film studio, which actually didn't make the movie, but owned the rights to the movie and made a bunch of other movies. You may have heard of them. They wanted to get into social games. They wanted to try making a game. And they saw Hollywood Tycoon. They said, is there an affordable way for us to try making a game where you don't have to rewrite from scratch? So can you use your Hollywood Tycoon engine and make a Dirty Dancing game? I considered it kind of an odd request, but I like creative challenges. And so I sat down and I thought, how could you make a movie about romance and dancing out of a sim tycoon game where you were making movies? So what you'll see here, I'll show you a couple of things about it. Do we have audio, by the way? Is this plugging in? Okay. Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. That's good. It's all plugged in. So Ryan and Matt will wince because we hear this music at the office all the time. You can put the lights back down if you don't mind. Yeah. So this is the game. What we ultimately took a shot at was in the movie they go to a resort for the summer. Patrick Swayze and this young girl, and they kind of fall in love, and then the movie ends. So this kind of picks up where the movie ends. Max Kellerman, who owns the resort, everybody leaves, and things kind of go into disrepair, and it's your job to come back and bring the stars of the movie back and build up the resort and bring more customers, get them to fall in love, put on dance shows. I'm going to show you the game, but while I show you the game, I'm going to show you how we run the game. And the big thing that we've been thinking about that we think is kind of interesting about the way games are transitioning right now, and the area where we're focused, is on the idea of games as a service. So this idea that essentially games are no longer something you put on a disc and ship to somebody's house, or even a game that you download and run, that once the producer of that game has made it, their job is finished. That idea is kind of over. Even the big AAA title producers have been phoning us or are already working on their own tools saying, we're looking for solutions where we're going to have to address this question of how we manage this game once it's live. So as we built Dirty Dancing Romance Resort, we looked a lot at the back end. So as customers come in and play our game for free, but buy virtual goods, how do we update those virtual goods? As customers come in and hit a challenge that's a problem, how do we keep track of where they're having problems and make adjustments in real time on the fly? Meanwhile, another problem that I had personally that I wanted to solve for myself is how, after 10 years of not programming, could I make changes to the game myself without getting in line behind Ryan and Ryan's team, begging them to do what I wanted when they had much more important things to do on the next thing that we were building or whatever it is that they wanted to do. Drink Coca-Cola and eat pizza, but whatever. So how could I make those changes without fighting and waiting? So not only did we make a tool for the management of stuff, we've tried to make the tool easy enough to use that a non-programmer can go in and do stuff. So I'm pretty excited about that. In fact, before I show you the back end, I'm going to show you some of the front end stuff they've done. This is actually a tool that Ryan and his team built that they kind of went ahead and did when I didn't even know about it, but it's pretty cool. Things like this pop-up on whatever device are things you usually have to go get an artist to work on. The UI, the layout, put stuff in place in Photoshop, put it in layers, cut it off, give it to the programmers, wait for the programmers to put it into the server, the content, and then lay it out in the game. So they went and said, listen, there's got to be an easier way to do this. So they built a tool in the web browser where you can build those user interface elements. So this is a Facebook canvas. It's not showing up on the screen perfectly, but imagine that's centered. All of the content, this is running through the web browser, all the content is on the server side where all of our game is running. And all the images that are part of Dirty Dancing are in here. There's actually a better browser now. I don't know how to use it, so I'm going to show you the old version. And you can pick your images, you place them where you want, all in a WYSIWYG editor. You can place dynamic images and say we want this image to come from Facebook. We could say we only want it to come in Facebook if this player has 5 of these items, or we only want it to come in if this or if that. So these are visual layout tools. I can put text, and I can say I want this text to be the user's name, or I want this text to be all the top 10 players, or I want whatever field of content, whatever data metric point that's stored on the server, I can call for it, ask for it here in this window. So this window that I'm building is actually the same window that you're looking at here. And what happens when I save these user interface elements here is it gets saved as a text string on the server. So what actually happens when Dirty Dancing loads is that it looks on the server and gets the layout information for this window, which means the programmers can change the layout of this window on the back end, and every time you load the app, even if you downloaded it 5 days ago, when you open that app today, the UI will be different, because the programmers on the server side changed the UI. So you don't have to go to the App Store and wait for approval, which is a big issue for some developers. So that's just a little bit of the tool. I'll show you more in a second. First, here's the game. I'm going to put the music on for a sec. So this is a game of running the resort. You can zoom in and out. This is sort of a big resort. It unlocks as I level up. This area is not yet open to me. I've been building these decorations and attractions. Yeah, how am I doing for time? Do you want to give me a quick time check? Pardon? How am I doing for time? Okay, about 10 minutes. So in this game, what I'm trying to do is get the people to fall in love, and then they start spending money. Oh, that's loud. Turn that down a little bit. So I can zoom in and see their love score, and I can drop some romance on them, which is basically earned by putting on dance shows. So I'm out of romance waves, so I'm going to collect some more. Oh, I got a bonus. So let's see if I can get somebody to fall in love quickly here. There we go. All right. So I'll turn it off. Now that they're couples, they start playing basketball. I start earning money. I earn more money. I can buy more stuff, and I can expand my resort. Very quickly, I'll show you a bunch of features in the game. I have a store at the bottom here, which shows all of the items I can buy. This is a swimming pool here that I can build, and when people are coupled up, they jump in the swimming pool and swim around together. I can build more lodges to have more guests. All of these items, you'll watch when I click the button, you'll watch that they're loading. Think of WordPress for games. So this is a tool where there's a CMS on the back end to manage this content. So when I click, you'll see the stuff loading in the window. It's pretty quick, but you see it loading in real time there. And that's coming from the server. So if that content changes on the server, this game, through that UI that you saw me editing in the other window, will load the new content that's on the server. One of the advantages, of course, and one of the reasons we built this stuff was so that when we built games, we didn't have to keep rebuilding the same item over and over and over again. So you saw the top bar in Dirty Dancing. These are all the UI elements in Dirty Dancing, and this is top bar. So this is the part of the screen that's running and pulling up, the pull down to load more music, to show my score. Unfortunately, it's not on the screen, but you can see it when I pull it down. Those are the names of the metrics on the server that it's calling. So let's see. On Dirty Dancing, there's other features really quickly. I'll show you a couple of them. Challenges. Basically, if the user does this, give them this. We can sequence challenges, so we can say they can't have this challenge until they've completed another challenge. We can lock them based on level, so they don't see it till they've reached a level. We can give them items from the inventory, from the merchandise store, the virtual goods store that we have. So lots of flexibility there, and if you sequence challenges, you can make tutorials or storylines. There's lots of pop-ups here, this thing telling me to invite my friends. My friends are at the bottom. It's social, manages all the feeds from Twitter, Facebook that you need. And as you can see at the top, the levels and the score and so on. So when I go to the back end, this is what it looks like. Because what I'm doing as I build my game is I'm storing metrics. In Dirty Dancing, we store 4,000 metrics. Every time I clicked a car, the server was going, okay, Nathan clicked a blue car, or Nathan clicked a green car, or another car was clicked, and that's being aggregated up. So on the server, what we have are 4,000 data points for every user that we're tracking and storing the information for. Which means, if I want to see how my game is doing, I just come in here and have a look. So on this day, I had 400 new players. On this day, I had 200 new players. Today or yesterday, I had 12 new players come in. And that they all came into the new user introduction step. But then out of 12, only 5, I don't know why, Ryan, but only 5 stayed to the second step to click decorations. So that's a huge drop. So maybe there's something wrong in my game where clicking on the decorations, the hotspot is off. Or maybe nobody likes decorations. But this is my chance to see, oh my God, every day, every hour I can look at this and see what are my users doing, and I can make changes. This is the virtual goods part of the tool where I can go in and see all the items that we saw in the store. I can make changes to them. I can change the description. If I rewrote that description over there right now, that would be updated in the game. I can see how it's selling. I can lock it by different levels. I can do all sorts of stuff with it. If I want to see my users, I can go in and see what items they have, their activity, what payments they've made. I can go in and edit the items, take it out of the inventory, give them something. I can search for all my top users who spent over $100. I can search for any user based on any of those 4,000 metrics. If I want to see all my users who've gone to level 5, then I say I want to see all my users gone to level 5. That's one of the 4,000 metrics. So I click search. Here's all my users who spent over $100 in Dirty Dancing. Now I can group them up and I can send them an email in the marketing section. So I can say, hey all you guys, I found you. You spent over $100, but you haven't been back in weeks. Well, we have a new level for you. Please come back and check it out. If you come back and check it out in 24 hours, we give you this item. And so that kind of stuff's all automatable. I can make that stuff automatic. Challenges, that stuff I said where if the user does this, then I'll give you this. This is where I have my hundreds and hundreds of challenges. Some of our users are crazy. They'll click a car 5 times to win a challenge, and then you say, okay, so now click it 10 times to win the challenge. They'll click it and you say, okay, how about 10,000 times? And you always have some users who will just do the endless amount. So I can make these challenges, I can set them with different locks. I can assign different tasks. So select your trainer challenge is done as soon as select your trainer is greater than or equal to 1. But I could say 5. If it was 5, select a trainer as a challenge. I think, that's basically it. I don't want to bore you to tears. I have a few more minutes left. So I think, the last thing I'll do is I'll show you what Ryan built in 3 days. They built, let's load this up.
Show the local one.
Show the local one. Okay, show the local one. All right. So we were asked by Paramount to make a demo and to pitch on a project called World War Z, which is a zombies movie that will be coming out with Brad Pitt. And so the guys put this together very, very quickly, very impressive, using Unity. So this is powered on the back end by Lightning. So here's some zombies. kill them. I hope. Yeah, well that's what I'm trying to get to show you. Come on. Ryan. Okay. What's that?
You can just hold the mouse button.
Oh. Okay, well where's my Uzi? This is level 1? Yeah. Oh, there it is. I found it. Okay, that's better. All right, so now he has a little Uzi. Let's go get some more. Come here. So this is a really quick demo. I won't play it. Well, I already have played it, but I won't go on. If you look at the UI, you'll see at the top is my health bar. Down here is my score bar. Over there is, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to demo because I noticed that we had another meeting just a little while ago. It didn't work, but let me try really quickly. Going to, oh, yeah, it's not working, too bad. So what I would have shown you is, in the game, those UI elements that are on the screen, you remember how I showed you in Dirty Dancing, we had the top bar, and we had all those other pieces you could move around in your WYSIWYG editor? If I drag that stuff, you would see these elements, like the health bar, and I would have dragged it on the editor, and I would have hit save, and after I hit save, I'd reload the game, and the things would be in different places. So you can have multiple people in the studio working on these pieces in real time, so I think I'm being gobbled up. I think that's probably enough. Why don't I take a couple of questions if you have them? Oh, I have to leave. So why don't I just take a few if that's okay with you? I'm sorry to mess with your system, but yeah, I can't stay for the whole thing. I'm sorry. By the way, I don't know why nobody likes those cheap little donuts from across the street, but they're in tins there if you want it. What's that? You're sitting down. We'll have them when you go. Or pass them around. But I put some cards on the table, so if I don't get to meet you, grab a card. If you can't get a card, it's just Nathan at Social Game Universe. That'll reach me. In fact, send anything at Social Game Universe, one of us will get it. Yeah, go ahead. What would you like?
Curiosity for like the World War Z game, if you guys took inspiration from Boxhead.
I don't even know Boxhead. Ryan, did we take inspiration from Boxhead? No. You know what the inspiration was? If you really want to know the design idea behind the game, first of all, there was some pre-built parts of Unity Engine that let us go really fast. It was like a shooting guy or something running around, so we took that stuff as template and just built on top of it. But the real idea for the game mechanic was Diablo 3, and the idea was going to be that you clear a screen like that with zombies, you go to the next screen, and you're kind of clearing a map as you go, and there's lots of loot as you kind of open up crates and you move across like a whole world and rescue your friends, because we're going to be a social game on Facebook. So if you go through 5 screens, you rescue Ryan, and now Ryan is part of your posse, and you've got 2 guys, and you're going and killing, and then we were going to kind of expand that way. So, yes?
I was just curious, coming back to the games as a service versus games as just a straight up product. When you look at releases like Diablo 3 and more recently SimCity, that they've been met with a lot of controversy and a lot of disappointment by the gamers. How long do you see those kind of issues being ironed out so that the launches will be smoother? Or do you think people are going to get to a point where maybe this isn't going to work for every game and some games should remain products?
Well, don't get me wrong, because product is the wrong word, because obviously every game is a product anyway, but product as a service or something you run on an ongoing basis. I don't have a magic crystal ball, but I will say this. I think you've singled out a couple of games that had hiccups and problems that were ironed out, as you say, and by and large pleased their customers, by and large.
Yeah.
So there was a vocal group of people complaining, but I always wait a couple weeks before I get the latest version of Windows or play SimCity. So I think that it's here to stay, pretty much, but I would say the way TV didn't replace radio, there are still going to be games that don't need anybody else to play, they don't need any content updated, they're fun on their own. So maybe that'll end up in the end of the day, that'll be 10 or 20% of the market, and it'll always be there, and it'll be significant. The guys who do well in that market will still do well. But I do think the idea of freemium isn't an idea that'll go away. I think it's coming on strong, it'll stay a long time.
Well, you mentioned different games sharing elements of the game. Have you considered different platforms, or is that something you see coming down the line where you can play on different platforms? And
absolutely. You know, just while we still have this on the screen, this bar at the top of the screen, my promo bar, can you kill the light for a sec just so they can see it? This is a promo bar for other games. but it's powered on the same software and same ideas. So these are just ads for other games, but that's give film to Jason in a totally different game. And in fact, we have send zombies to him in Hollywood Tycoon. We have one where it's plant an evil plant on your friend's yard. There, derp his yard with derp grass. And so when I do that, I actually was derping Francis's garden full of derp grass or whatever and screwing up his yard, but also was getting points in a reward system for doing that. I don't know if it's going to work. Yeah, I got a point. So I did this thing in my ad bar. That is still an idea that we're interested in, the idea of cross-application interaction, because this was a way more fun way to discover Hollywood Tycoon. To say, oh, he sent zombies to his studio? That sounds like a more fun game than just a sim studio. So that was a really unique way to discover products. Yeah. I guess I'll just take two more because I'm screwing with your system. So in the red shirt.
I was wondering if you will see like live updates, or I'm assuming you don't have to take down any servers or anything to update your games, right? With this.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Well, sometimes we have to do updates. We're still in the early stage of Lightning being live. But yeah, we do real-time updates. And so they have a staging server and a live server. And we try to do and test everything on the staging server and then push it to the live server. But Lightning, which is our platform and runs it, when it needs an update, sometimes we have to go down for a minute or two and fix it and put it back up, which means anything running on it is affected. So that is a reality of life at the moment.
So do you see this going on to AAA titles eventually, because with like the DRM stuff? I don't like DRM, but like how it's always online. Like, will it eventually like go into AAA titles like live updates with no downtime?
Well, I'm not sure I get the entire question, but in terms of AAA titles running like this, we get phone calls right now from some of the biggest studios who are looking to start running their games like this. Almost all of them, some of them have sworn us to secrecy because they don't want to let out that they're moving away from the AAA world into the freemium world they are. As for like fixing the game in the middle of it, I don't know. I don't really have an answer. There was one more question. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just you mentioned how like really early on you were kind of doing that asymmetrical play idea, like the whole Dust 514 and Eve. Like, do you see?
Sorry, the asymmetrical play, the whole what?
Like between Dust 514 and Eve, like how if you play in Dust 514, it's affecting the Eve universe, like they're completely different.
Okay, yeah, that same
affect the
idea of
universe.
like doing these things. Yeah.
So is that how you kind of see that evolving?
So somebody did
on
that?
a smaller scale? Yeah.
So we were doing this, I guess, 4 years ago, and I'm not familiar with that game or what they were doing. We even had virtual goods moving from game to game. Part of the idea was you could farm in the farm game and feed that stuff to your guys in the RPG game, and we wanted a trading ecosystem. But that's a big vision that we never got that far. We're a small company, like 12 or something people, and so we just didn't get that far. But what's your question? Is it going to keep going? Will more people do that?
I guess like I've been wondering how that kind of concept would filter down to games that obviously can't support their own like massive universe. Do you see them?
I do actually see a place for it. It's in simple versions of it, like that Agape bar you saw. If somebody had a game but they weren't part of the whole universe, for example, the farm game that I derped his yard, that actually could be a game that had nothing else about it except maybe 1 or 2 items that were available only to people who came in from another game. So we could do, and you can do things that are aesthetic, like you can make it rain on somebody so it's funny and affect them in an aesthetic way that doesn't actually fundamentally impact the game. So if a guy wanted to have a bit of this in his game, but didn't know how the overall economy was going to affect him being part of that bigger universe, he could do aesthetic things that weren't practically going to change much in the game. Or it could just be free stuff he was already giving away that you get because you're coming. So there were different levels of ways of doing it, and we set up a way that people could plug in, who added a couple things to the game that was unique, like the zombies in Hollywood Tycoon never happened unless you were plugged into that bigger system.
Well, thank you, Nathan.
Thank you very much.
That was some very inspiring stuff.
We want people to use Lightning, and we want you to visit our studio, so email us.
Yeah, that was some very inspiring stuff, and I can't wait to see what you guys do with Lightning. All right, so next up we're going to move to Dan Stopnicki from 3DI Games, or 3DI Solutions, I mean. So, what is yours, Dan?
Thank you, guys. Sorry I can't stay. Thank you. Yeah, the cards are there.
supposed to do that. Oh my god, I just personally don't like that. And it's like clicking these things and clicking these boxes. Just like seeing little decisions you have to make. Like, I don't think it's almost the right thing.
I'm just firing up
Stuff going on.
here as you can get up and running. Anyway, my name is Dan Stopnicki, and I'm indeed from 3DI Solutions. I'm one of the managing
it's my
partners.
personal preference for
We've
that.
been around for about 4 years, creating, essentially using game engines for marketing purposes. So I'm slightly on a different tangent than some of the other studios here, but essentially doing the same kind of thing. My interest is always in the absolute power of real-time environments to create immersive worlds and the interesting things that could come of that. So it started about 5 years ago when I was looking for a condo, and this is the biggest investment of my life. And I'm walking in there, and they give me a flyer which had like 1 or 2 pictures and this like floor plan, and I'm a 3D guy, and I can't even figure out what I'm looking at or how big is that, And I thought there's got to be a better way to do this. So I started messing around with Unreal Tournament 2004 at the time, and seeing if I could build my apartment in 3D so I could see what I was going to buy. This is some nerdy stuff. Like, I mean, you got to be a certain kind of person. Anyway, it stuck with me, and I was mentioning it to a guy who eventually became my business partner. We decided to see if we could do it as a living. First answer was no, actually. So it was a roundabout way that we actually came around to doing that. But so I was somewhat of a meandering soul. It seems like INC graduates end up spending a couple of years trying to find themselves after school. But anyway, I did end up starting a business with him, and we proposed the idea of using real-time development and approaching marketing agencies, developers, so people that aren't normally exposed to this type of technology, and just seeing what happens if we get on a collision course with them. So that's essentially where we started. So when I had to explain to one of my first clients, which ended up being an ad agency, what real time is, I said that, basically, which is this chicken. I just want to leave you with that memory. Now I'm going to explain it, I promise. So this was one of the first projects. We actually started out saying, wouldn't it be cool if you could have these like touch screens with like real-time applications? And I started using the word kiosks, and if you think of kiosks, you probably think of like a Pac-Man machine with its big ugly box, and people were like, my audience is online. This was during like the big, microsite boom, and everyone was into Flash and all that kind of stuff. So we actually started our careers working online, and I went backwards. So I didn't work with game engines. I ended up working with chickens. This is an AS3 deployment using Away 3D, and this was a proof of concept we did for a project for Hellman's Mayonnaise, which was one of our first big gigs. The question was, could we model realistic chickens? So people had heard of video games. This is 3 years ago, and they weren't quite sure we could get there. So I created this demo and this prototype, and again explaining to people what real time is, which is essentially this space where you can move around, explore objects at your will, independent of the animation. So they were intrigued by the idea, and we ended up running this campaign, which was the Hellman's Running Real Food Movement. We created 3 different AI chickens. They were customizable, so you could choose what chicken you wanted. You could add bandanas to them. Again, leveraging all the benefits of dynamic textures and all this neat stuff. And then you actually had to go and train the thing as part of the campaign. We ended up with this campaign ran with 22,000 users across Canada, and was part of a huge media buy and a great success for us. So this is actually where we got started in real-time environments, which is Flash. So yeah, Flash is unfortunately kind of dead. It's only really made a resurgence for us as I apologize, but it's sad that it is, because I was actually really getting into it as a platform in a Way 3D community, in the cleavage community. We're just getting going with some amazing demos and shaders, and it was all running in the browser. And it was fantastic, and if it made it to mobile deployment, and Steve Jobs then made it a personal mission to just destroy it, I think it would have made today's development market a lot easier. Because when people say, oh, awesome, you can do this campaign for me, will it work on mobile phones? I'll say, nah, not if it's Flash, I can do it in Unity. They're like, oh great, it'll work on mobile phones, so I can have it on the website too. I'm like, sure, with a plugin, unless you're using Chrome. And so it's just endless circle. People say, well, have you heard about WebGL? I'm like, yeah, sure, that runs on browsers if it's enabled. So, it is just an absolute mess out there right now, and it's what we call market fragmentation, and it's made production incredibly difficult and difficult to reach target markets. So this was a little bit of an easier time. I look back on it fondly. Platforms that we use at 3DI, we started with Flash, Away 3D, and Paper Vision, did a lot of work with it. We did furniture customizers. A lot of kind of boring run-of-the-mill stuff, but it gave us a chance to cut our teeth, learn CMSs, learn how to use these platforms to create graphics. My team was hired out of game developers, so I also teach at Seneca College. I run the game art and animation program. I've actually had a lot of partnerships with Ryerson and just wrapped one up last summer, working with Matt Cayenne and a bunch of Ryerson students on a really exciting project should launch this year. And so anyway, I hired a lot of the artists that I trained there, and the idea was to kind of hit these markets with some AAA, high-quality game developers and game artists and see what we could do to make a difference. Worked with Virtuals, which is a French company at the time, kind of competitor to Unity, and eventually switched to Unity. And more recent, we're actually running a lot of our production with Unreal with UDK. Our technologies were touchscreens. We work with touchscreens, the kinds you see in store. So we did actually make this long journey and eventually got to in-store touchscreens or sales centers around the city that are using our technology running UDK. To me, it's amazing that we got there. It's crazy. It's a AAA video game. People are working with touchscreens, navigating menus, looking at floor plans, multi-touch. I'll show you some examples of those. It's neat. Other companies are starting to do it. It's the way of the future, and I'm really excited to have been part of that initial wave to make that happen. Mobile, of course, Unity, UDK running on mobile, and a bunch of different apps there, games, augmented reality. Gesture systems, we released one of Canada's first commercial gesture applications. As soon as the camera technology came out and was public use, we launched a campaign with Sephora, which I'll show you today, which used gesture-based systems linked with Unity to create interactive experiences for the marketing industry. And augmented reality, as I mentioned, something we've been working on. Gesture, our biggest success was with CTV. We worked with Discovery Channel on a daily news show called Daily Planet, who integrated two of our systems. This was the first one. I've got a sample here which I can run of the actual tests that we were using in the studio, just because the one we released for the final implementation wasn't quite as cool. This is one of our techs setting up Daily Planet. We created a world. This is using a system called Touch Designer, which was designed by the developer Houdini, who eventually created Touch Design. Touch Designer is a badass piece of software. It's neither 3D nor 2D. It's somewhere in the middle, and it's a pretty neat piece of technology. It can also run 10K textures, which is what we have on that planet, and it can also composite 3D graphics. But it cannot actually accept gesture input. So we actually had Unity running with the gesture camera, and Unity through OSC sending that to the touch system and touch rendering the graphics. So that was pretty neat. The other system we had is actually for that box there to go full screen. We needed somebody in the control room to press a button, which didn't seem like that big a deal. So we found out the control room is in a completely different building. It was $22,000 Canadian to get it there. So we had to create this whole insane Wi-Fi network so someone could press the big red button. Anyway, the funny things that happen in development. But anyway, they're still running with that now. If you watch the high-tech segment, a guy with an iPad, I forget his name, he's got a system with 6 different screens. He can push on them with his hand and trigger a live feed. This is also the first time that we've seen an HD live broadcast signal in a real-time environment in a game engine, which was custom code we had to work with the developer to build. Second project, which came out that summer as well. This is a campaign we did with Dentsu Canada and Split Element. And this is the goal, basically, to create a shadow of yourself on a 4-story building. But your shadow, instead of it being your shadow, you're a sumo or a geisha or a samurai. And this is, of course, sponsored by Sapporo. This ended up touring across North America with Beer Festival that year. These were the 3D models that we generated, some of our early tests. Our guys much of that, and then the ultimate experience here. What I thought was really neat for this as far as a gaming experience, because I do consider this gamification, was that we had absolutely no game mechanic. So it was stand in front of it, see your shadow. I mean, I could have just put a big light behind these guys. They made their own games. Most of them started fighting with each other, including with the geishas. So I thought that was a really neat kind of experiment and an interesting thought about where gaming is kind of could go, which is that a lot of people really try to drive a strong game mechanic. It's really interesting that sometimes you can just build a platform and the game comes to the users. Very interesting idea, and that was part of the campaign that we built for them. So gesture was part of it. Real estate, somewhat less sexy, but again, also really interesting project. I thought I'd share that with you guys because if you're interested in going into building your own studio, you're interested in exploring indie development, I think there's some really important questions you should ask yourself, all the stuff that I missed maybe on my way through it. The first thing is the concept of identifying your consumer. I'm going to flip the order of this because it's just on top of my mind. When I built this thing for me. When I want to buy a condo, I want to be able to see it, I want to be able to see my view, I want to be able to see all these things. So I built the software for what I would like as a consumer. But my consumer was actually the developer, who wasn't that interested in showing you about 40% of the units, which were by the garbage can, or had absolutely no view, or were on the low floor, whatever it is. So I had to learn the fact that you really need to understand who your consumer is, the guy that's going to fulfill this. If you want to go to a publisher, or you want to go to somebody who's going to invest in your company, you really need to go and ask your friends, not only is this a cool idea, but then say, all right, I'll give you $50,000. Because that will be the real deciding factor as to whether it is a good idea or not. A lot of good ideas are fantastic until you have to buy it yourself. Suddenly a bunch of questions come, well, hang on a second, that's 50 G's. What is this thing actually going to do for me? And so that's an important thing that you need to look at, something I had to do a lot of work. It took me a long time to crack into this market. Another factor in what I call this thing is disruptive technology. And this is a lot of what we saw from the last presentation. I thought he was doing a lot of this, being really innovative in a space. When you're innovative in a space, you're the first one in there. That's sometimes a good thing. That could also be an incredibly challenging thing because people have been doing business and making money another way for a long time. And you're going to come in, and this is what I did. I walked in an office of big developers who make billions of dollars, and I said, you don't know how to do this. And I had to really win them over with that argument. And I had more than enough guys grab me by the collar and roll me right out of their office. So that's, that's something that's just a hard lesson to learn. That's the nature of disruptive technology. So getting in there was a factor. The third one I'll share with you is my experiences with UDK. Because I heard some comments about UDK. And UDK is really trying to get into the mobile market space that Unity's dominated for a very long time. My studio is 7 guys, and so we worked with Unity, we worked with VirTools, we worked with rapid prototyping systems. When we moved to UDK, we had a lot of challenges. UDK is built as a software platform for large productions. You can just tell the mentality of the software and the way that it's set up. It's built for studios, so 50, 60 guys that sit down together, work for 2 years, and pump out something beautiful. It was a very challenging work environment for us to develop the systems that we did in there. I'll show you some of the early prototypes. This is what we used to sell it with. This is also a 84-inch sheet of glass that is capacitive. This is technologies that we were selling at the same time, some of the hardware solutions. It's funny how you start with software and then they go, well, what do you show this thing? And all of a sudden I'm a hardware developer. But this is an 84-inch rear projected glass that you're essentially controlling a game space. This game space is a development. And what we stitched on top there is Flash, which is essentially Scaleform. Scaleform is now readily available. At this time it was a prototype for VirTools. And that Flash is now sending commands back and forth through the game engine. So you've got a menu at the bottom. You can select availability of units. That unit's being sourced by CMS, which is deciding whether it's available or not, putting a green or red sticker on it. And then those are actually touchable units, which I'm pretty sure this dude goes in at some point and actually zooms in on one of them, but maybe not in this demo. So this was one of our prototypes, and this is what I kind of shopped around and eventually started to sell in the city. This is kind of the final result of our latest implementation. This is not our latest, but one of our last year's implementations. This was for a sales center for Minto called Carnations, which is in Etobicoke. By this point, our system actually has a full multi-touch table built into it. So this is a 65-inch tabletop solution. Has an interactive 3D CMS system that will not only show you the plans, but x-rays and show you them only if they're available. So the sales agents had checkoffs and they could literally turn off any one of the units that wouldn't show up in the system and wake up in the morning and say, what do I have to sell? The other thing that we stitched into this thing was that as you touch the 3D plans and explore them, when you go to the 2D layer, this multi-touch layer, so right here, just to stop for a second, this is availability. So there were 6 kind of systems. Each one of these are showing availability of units, which you can sort based on color. All 2D plans would associate based on your actions. So it's actually reporting what units you're looking at and making decisions as to what to show you based on that. This is all UDK. and it is also scale form. So this is a multi-touch scale form. We essentially had to write our own scale form libraries because all the multi-touch systems at the time didn't work. The Flash ones don't work in scale form, so we had to write our own. This was our interpretation of 3D floor plans, which was kind of a new idea we explored, which is actually overlaying the floor plans with their stairs and entrances into 3D space and seeing what that would do to help you understand exactly what the space is that you're buying. So this was kind of the implementation. This is UDK. We ended up doing all of this pre-baked, so we're actually not using a lot of what UDK has to offer in the end, which is the lighting systems, because again, just a lot of technical reasons, they don't end up working well for small productions. This is part of our 2D plans, and that's a pretty lady.
Just curious, how much is that screen?
That particular 65-inch was, I think, around $12,000. Most of those we buy actually as a television unit and as a separate membrane, and we did our own integration. Is that a question?
Yeah, just sort of curiosity. The first thing that came to my mind when I saw your table screen computer thing was when you were testing that, did you guys throw like an air hockey game into that and mess around with it like that?
We actually, that's exactly what we did.
Okay,
so,
cool.
There was one of the first things we did to test the multi-touch.
Yeah.
We created a puck and threw physics on it and banged it back and forth. So yes, that's
cool.
weird thing to say. Other steps that we've moved into, this has now become a big source of our latest work, is augmented reality. This is some of our first demos, which was essentially working with a lot of the off-the-shelf libraries. Really easy to use, not hard to do this stuff. Vuforia, Unity, and off you go. These are some of the 3D models that we started to create. This is our first test working with Scaleform and Unity, seeing how that run. Some performance benchmarking with some custom car shaders, which were a little bit tougher to write for the using the OpenGL platforms and the mobile-friendly platforms, and seeing what we could get away with. So this was some of the work that we've been getting lately that's kind of coming down the pipe. From here, we're starting to move the business much more towards out-of-home gaming experiences, what we call like social engagement. So we're starting to create gesture experiences in museums, at trade shows, on the street, that might reference things like a rock band type experience or a flight simulator, but have that as a branded type journey for people to work with. This is the same interactive experience. What we did here is gamify a car turntable. So the idea here is to take a car turntable you'd normally see on a website, and what would happen if that car was actually chasing you. So we threw it into UDK, we threw in some custom animations, and we said, imagine you could get a sense of a car's 360 view by actually having it in some kind of car chase. So you're getting all the same data, but you're getting that in a really interactive and fun way. So this is a 42-inch table. Again, it's only really a tabletop because we took a 42-inch screen and put it on its back. And this is running again in UDK. You can see some lights, particle systems, all the basic stuff that UDK can do that we tend to have from our artists as they develop it. So this is the exact same model that we saw running in augmented reality.
Are your TV table things, is the processing done in the table, or do you have them hooked up to an external computer?
A lot of the screens have some microprocessors in them that allow you to do it in the table. Unfortunately, because of the type of horsepower we need for our stuff, what we're aiming to do is create the highest possible quality image. We're competing against V-Ray renders. The real estate industry has been doing renderings forever, and they're very good at it. The car industry has been doing renderings forever. They're very good at it. So our clients have an incredibly high bar to meet. So in order to get into that industry, I need to show up with something comparable. So I huck in a quad-core i7 with 32 gigs of RAM and slam it on the table and fire it up into the air, blows like some lady off the table at the end. But that gets the job done, and most of these things are kiosks. When we switch over to mobile, we have to see if we can knock down that same experience. So part of what we're looking at doing, and again, this deals with that market fragmentation, is finding a way to build once and deploy everywhere. That's a significant question. How do we get there? So anyway, that's my contact information. Any other questions? No? Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Dan. Ryerson TV are actually has a lot of stuff about augmented reality and stuff like that. People can work on that. I've worked on a lot of that stuff as well, so that's also really interesting. And I worked with the lab that you worked for the project. That I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it.
I'm not sure you are.
Okay, I'm not going to say it. But anyway, thank you, Dan. That was a great one of three guys' solutions on alternative uses for gaming technology. For now, we're going to hand the floor to Adrian Bulzaki from ARB Labs, who has his company software to talk about and his company. So, the floor is yours.
I work for that hey, how's it going? I love 3D. I think they make amazing interfaces. They have some long cool projects. Let me set up the computer. So, I'm a PhD student at Ryerson, and I have a high-tech company as well. My background is like image processing and multimedia systems. And I'm going to try. I've got a really raspy voice. If I go too loud, I might pop it. And then I can't finish it. I'm just watching silent slides. So, I started a company. The company's called ARB Labs, and what we do today is we design enterprise-grade gesture recognition software. So our software is primarily for transit companies, airports, casinos, and banks to very, very, very precisely recognize gestures. And what we're seeing is that we're becoming more in that space in the world right now. And there's a lot of cool applications for it. I'll tell you a little bit about the background of how we got started. And we got started originally at the Digital Media School here at Ryerson. I was building laboratories for the university, but the university really wanted to showcase internal research here. And we started this company. Originally, we were a hardware manufacturer, so we were developing really strange multi-touch displays. So we ended up building the world's only frameless, transparent multi-touch display. So there's no physical border around the image, but you still get the touch systems. It was at the AMC building for the floor. Ever checked it out? We kind of went from multi-touch, then we switched over to gesture recognition because we really are the main technology that we're showcasing. And we realized after building the first one that we never wanted to build or sell another multi-touch display ever again. It was, the profit margin was terrible for us. Everybody wanted something kind of unrealistic, and we decided, no, that's not the solution place for us. So I realized that I could satisfy a lot of my PhD goals and my research goals with my business. And I decided that I wanted to build a company called that would make video games for the Kinect platform. When the Kinect came out, it was really changing the way gesture recognition was done, and it was making it actually doable. Before that, it was all background subtracting. So companies like Gesture Tech and a few others were just subtracting your background and had kind of a blob, like if you know the original PS3i, or sorry, the PS2i and the PS1i. It was crappy. Nobody really liked it. So we tried to release a game, and the game we tried to release was charades. And it was a really simple idea that you get a word or a phrase, and then you start doing the gestures. Your avatar would get sent through a network to your friends, and they would have to guess the gestures you're making. They would guess by either pressing buttons or just yelling out the gesture. You get points based on how fast you guess the gesture, and the game was a little bit of fun. What we were really doing was we were crowdsourcing gesture data so that we could search and index it better and kind of refine our gesture recognition algorithms. We saw that the way everybody else was doing it today was they were hard coding it. So it was very tedious. You started viewing gestures as kind of these thresholds where you kind of create a two-dimensional line, and as soon as you go through that, maybe that's a punch. And you're kind of fooling the user into thinking that this is an immersive experience. And we said, you know what? This is going to change really fast, and we want to get the forefront of that. So we started getting a bit overloaded with companies trying to convert the platform into gesture recognition. And luckily, in our case, they tend to be higher paying clients. So we were the first company hired at Gunn Games. We started developing transit systems and a lot of security applications that I can't talk about. But we had a problem. We couldn't build our gesture solutions fast enough. The reason was we kept custom coding each one. And we had developed this algorithm for charades that could learn gestures unusually fast. The idea was that you'd be able to play the game one player. If you wanted to play charades against a computer, for the first time a computer would be able to respond back to it. But Microsoft really didn't want to play ball with us. We were too small in the studio. We were a cockroach in the game. We were too small, and they didn't want to give us a developer license to release actual Kinect games. So we competed in some contests with Microsoft, and we ended up coming out with the top 10 of best Kinect ideas. They gave us a bad equity evaluation, and we decided to pass on the deal. But 3 months later, they ended up giving us some good prizes and all the prize money associated with it. And we never kind of on the record as one of the top 10 companies. So we were in Fast Company magazine in June, and they were kind of doing the 10-year anniversary of the Film Minority Report. And they said, you know what? How has the world changed in the last 10 years? How has Minority Report shaped the way we view computer interaction today? And they said, you know what? You do make gesture recognition systems very similar to the ones in the film, but what we have developed was something unique. Of all the companies that they talked to, kind of secretly, they weren't able to reveal a lot of names. This is the only company that made advances in pre-crime technology. So our software was fast enough that we could predict what you're going to do before you do it. And our software recognizes a gesture around 600 frames per second. The camera's only sampled about 30, so we had built an algorithm that was able to be extremely precise for the future. We were very future friendly and it was extremely light. So I'll show you what we ended up doing with this product. I'll just open up some slides. Go to standard slide show mode. So we ended up building this product, and why the screen suddenly switched off? Okay, cool. So you just jump right to questions, maybe? So, we created this product called Gesture Studio. And what Gesture Studio let us do, and I don't know if anybody's used the Microsoft Office 2014, but it really changed the interface for dual screen. This is the first time seeing it. It's actually really cool. So, this piece of software, Gesture Studio, really dumbs down gesture recognition. The idea is that it's like Windows Movie Maker, or we're kind of envisioning it like Office. They use the way we can record any gesture you want, and then trim it and whatever, and then you're able to just press a teach button, and those gestures are able to be attached to buttons or clicks. There is an API, but we need so you just run to the back and tell us what buttons you want pressed when you do this gesture, and it'll work. So we decided to make a product specific, like work with every single hardware. We weren't trying to make a camera. We didn't care. We were going to get obliterated if we started looking on the camera. If we tried to do Leap, we get crushed. And the Leap right now is actually in some trouble. Everybody knows Leap, right? It's that finger pointing mini device that had an amazing video 6 months ago. They raised like $50 million in funding. Everybody bought it, but they didn't deliver. Well, there's a company called Duo 3D, and they were able to develop the original drivers that were open source that they proved in the video, and they're releasing an open source version of the Leap solution. They're just using 2-3 PS3i cameras. You can go to the store, and you got your own Leap solution for far less money. And the way our business is structured is we take any camera, let's say Kinect, perhaps it's Leap, which is a water-based company with that wristband thing that you can control, awesome, right? So cool. When I saw the video, I'm like, I know the video is fake, but I really want this device. I'll pre-order it happily. They actually pre-sold like $1.2 million worth of hardware.
Is it fake?
The science.
Wait, tell them what it is.
Okay. So it's a wristband that you put on, and then let's say you snap or you do some kind of gesture, you attach a button to that, and now you're controlling the computer with a hardware device that's actually connecting kind of to your muscles, kind of. What's happening is scientifically, your resistance or your capacitance is changing as you're moving your hand, and that's what it's recognizing the difference between. Luckily, our software is totally compatible with that. It's actually a really easy problem because they're just a 2D wave. The gesture recognition we do is 3D points moving through time. It becomes very complicated and difficult to be able to learn those different points. It's a higher dimensionality as well. So they have a standard hardware driver, and then skeleton algorithms became really popular recently. So when the Kinect came out, it started tracking the skeleton. became a really good standard. We realized that there's one constant between every gesture recognition system, or any kind of hardware. And it's a 3D point. You have 3D points, no matter how many, and those are just moving through time. If we can learn just that as a problem, then we can be compatible with anything else that comes out. So we have a middleware. I can tell you that there's a good chance that our middleware is going to be shipping with these companies' hardware very soon. So we're going to be a stock plugin that's already built into theirs, and use our software just to do the complex learning. And once you've learned something, get a recognizer file. And that recognizer file lets you just sort of, it saves you the time of, recognizer file works with the middleware, tiny file, you get it off the cloud or the regular application, and then you can recognize those gestures. We have a cloud that's coming out very soon, and I'll show you a bit more about that in a second. Play transition. So what it lets you do is, it's under a megabyte for the middleware, and you get access to the gesture studio libraries. I'll show you those in a second. But it lets any developer work with the API in a really simple way, so you don't have to really code anything. No problem. Here's what it lets you do. In the original version, we were able to do body, faces, and fingers. We turned off body, faces, and fingers to release the full version in a few weeks. But you can open up the recognizer files. All you have to do is pretty much either use your voice or pressing the record button. You just record yourself doing a gesture. You're able to trim it like Movie Maker. Trim off, let's say, the first part that wasn't the gesture, that was you either walking with your camera or you getting ready when you started doing those gestures. And then you save them. Usually right now, just need 2 samples of each gesture. And that's about like 20 seconds worth of stuff. And you do a fully functioning system. So it usually takes about 2 minutes from beginning to end to get to work. There's something really cool that we put in. I don't know if people realize it yet, like our users, but when we capture settings, we able to capture the RGBs, the depth, which is any 3D array. We don't encrypt it. If you use the software, everything's open source from that perspective. So you can see exactly what you recorded, and you can use another part of the program. You don't have to use our learning software. There's this cool mode where you're able to turn off individual joints of the body. If you know that you're not using your lower body, turn some of those pieces off individually, one at a time. Or if you're not using the left side of the body, you can turn that off and run it separately. We have this program called Gesture Studio Lite. It's like the trimmed down version that's super fast for recognition if you're really precise there, if you really need some precision. And I'm going to cut through the trailer because this is way too long. This is just an example of how the learning happens. So this is Sean. He's our most non-technical person in-house. And we just asked him to put some demos out of this. This here's the problem with Office 2013. You don't have control over the video on your end. It's just stuck playing. At the end of this video, he ends up training a whole bunch of gestures, Minecraft gestures, and then he's playing Minecraft within a few minutes. So he trains the mining gesture, he trains his jump gesture. I think this was left, this was right, and it works usually precisely to play the full game. So, because of how slow this is, I'm going to skip ahead. We have a cloud solution. This is really cool. We changed our gesture studio logo. I asked our animator, I said, I want something like Super Saiyan 1 to 2, not 3. I thought there was too much electricity in Super Saiyan 3. And we had this whole discussion this morning where, and this was just drawn this morning because it's just going to be launched, where we were comparing the battle sequence between Trunks and Goku when he goes back to Namek and uses his fingers to control the sword. If you guys remember that scene, we used that as the basis of the sword. We were trying to get some electricity on the sword. And this is something cool. This is something nobody else is doing. We currently have the largest repository of gestures in terms of gestures we've saved while developing this, because this is about 2 years worth of backup. We're letting our entire database be available for download. So if there's specific gestures you want, you can search through our cloud and just download them and have a full function system so you don't have to record yourself. A lot of privacy concerns kick in. We have no clue what you look like. We don't know. We don't collect any of the RGB data. The reason is we got Microsoft or PrimeSense or any of these companies to use their skeleton algorithm first, so that it strips away any of our knowledge of what's happening under it. As their algorithms improve, ours kind of stay the same, and just our accuracy still gets better as they get better. And that was really important to us. We really didn't want any privacy concerns with what we were doing. We were trying to build something that could, one day predict if somebody was going to pull a gun out of the airport. that's the kind of software we're trying to develop. We don't want to profile anybody, so we want them to be as universal as possible. This is kind of cool. So we have this is our GUI for our cloud. And when you learn in the new version of Teams, what's going to happen is it's going to separate all your gestures that you just learned a second ago into these little clusters. And it's a pretty GUI. You're going to be able to see this online, where you can see the relationship and the similarity between each gesture. And the cool part is that a lot of gestures are similar, so they kind of intertwine each other's clusters sometimes. And it's going to be something that's it's kind of cool. Nobody else is really doing it this way, and we're trying to differentiate ourselves as like the premium gesture company in the world. And we already are in the security applications right now. I can't tell you about this because it really makes me stop when I start building the algorithms of how we detect crimes or how we detect theft, those types of things. But I'll show you a really cool example. We just started doing this for Daily Planet a week and a half ago. They came to us and said, hey, listen, can you show us anything Gesture Studio we can do a trailer for? And we said, well, we can do anything. What do you guys want to do? And we kept getting asked to do this, and this would have been nearly impossible to do maybe a year ago. The idea is that a store like a Walmart could use their regular retail staff to use our software and set up their mannequins, and then when you point at hands, you just record that gesture. When you point at a belt, you record that, you release it. And in a few minutes, you have a whole interactive system that you just overlay GUI with. It's really kind of really rudimentary. So the thing that we're getting find that we did was we built this exact setup from scratch. From morning up, we wanted to make sure that we didn't have any stuff except for Gesture Studio. We had no graphics down, we had none of our software coded, but we pretty much just took a basic frame, we added checks for button presses, and just loading up an image every time the A button was pressed, A was this gesture, and then it would do it. And if you go to my Twitter feed, or if you just check out Daily Planet, there's like a 4-minute explanation of how we did that, how fast we did it, and how responsible it was. I got cut off the top. We're adding these features in the next few weeks. The idea of bubbles of gestures. So not only do you have mouse controls and all the standard stuff the gesture recognition software has on top of the learning, but we're adding this thing of having bubbles around you, so you can draw through a 3D GUI, maybe a square that's a button that kind of follows you around. So as you move through your 3D environment, you're able to press a button that's always there, and nobody else sees it. Maybe Google Glasses will allow you to see it. We started building up this idea that you could add buttons all around you and sort of interface your own kind of system and your cell phone or whatever your personal devices, because everybody's asking us to build middlewares for cell phones, and our software is really small enough for that. Cool. I'm going to open it up for questions, and if you guys want to check me out, check my Twitter, because all the Daily Planet stuff's posted. If you go to gesturstudio.ca, you can download the program for free right now, so you'll get access to I can tell you that a lot of schools are already using our software as an alternative to hard coding gestures. So as part of a game program, if you're most of you probably in a game program, but the idea is that you can do your senior product much faster, or in a term without having to custom code all your gestures. You kind of just do focus on the languages that you're already developing, use the software, and it's just the middleware just kind of hangs in the background. What's up?
I was just wondering if you'd seen i5. It was on the Steam store like a week ago, and it's motion capture software that you can download for like $200, and you use 2 Kinects.
Yeah.
And supposedly it's decent.
I know it. It's a really cool product. I'll tell you how it works. Step 1, okay, so you get 2 Kinect cameras.
Yeah.
You just place them in the room. Then what you do is you have to hold up a checkerboard and calibrate. What they don't tell you on the website is that's actually an offline mode. So what you have to do is you have to record everything, and then once you do the calibration, then you have another level of calibration where you add a skeleton inside the person on one locked frame, and you kind of try to sync it up, and then the skeleton moves to the next frames. So they're awesome, but they're not real time. They're post-processing, so they're more if you're trying to add an avatar to a movie. They're awesome at that. We do have software to use 2 Kinect cameras. There's 3 gears. Actually, has a really cool piece of software you can check out if you download for free from PrimeSense's website. That two connects. You start with checkerboard calibration for the two cameras, and then it tracks your fingers properly. So it gets like really precise finger tracking. More than likely, we're partnering with them to add that feature to gestures to map.
Doing anything with deaf culture?
For sign language, our algorithm was developed presuming that we will be focusing on the sign language market. So
where are you got with that?
We know that we can learn more gestures than anybody else. So that's the result of what I'm telling you. As we're seeing that gesture recognition is becoming more and more like voice recognition, we know that. So we don't really have a product offering on it, but if you're trying to learn, let's say, 100 different signs or maybe 200 different signs, today. Using Henson.
What was that sign again?
Oh, it's called 3 Years. If you go to openai.com, no, I think openai.org. Their OpenAI is PrimeSense's driver. Their alternative to the Kinect SDK. And since they made the hardware, they had to come up with a skeleton algorithm. And I'll tell you, theirs is more precise than Microsoft's. There's 3 or 4 glitches with Microsoft one. It doesn't do sides and it doesn't do the back. The current OpenAI driver does. And so we just partnered with PrimeSense, and more than likely our solutions will be integrated with their solutions.
Could the options change, like, recommendations that you can get on the fingers? Are there limits to things? Do you choose where these are, or?
You do actually. Well, you know, like I can probably just look at show you that picture. The idea is that I'm showing you this Speedman version. Why the stream gets off when I switch between the does that make sense? I may not be able to do this without camera, but the idea is that we show you a model of the hand or the body, and you can individually select how many points you want, because we just build a custom driver for everybody's hardware. And so, okay, we know these guys use 20 points, we know these guys use 5 points, and we let you systematically check them out.
We're going to have a Q&A session after the next presentation, so if you have any questions,
take a lot of co-op students, and we have a very high ratio of co-op students, so if anybody's interested in the summer internship, there is usually a waiting list, but I really recommend it. You get to see a lot of really cool stuff, and like I said, it's a very high probability to show you higher.
Right. Thank you, Mad Lab scientist Adrian Bulzaki, everyone. I also work in sometimes at Sim2 Labs at Ryerson University using Eric. So I'm familiar with a lot of this stuff as well. Next, we're going to move on to our last presenter, which is Mr. Rob Segal from Get Set Games, who managed to get here, and I'm very happy about that. So, floor is yours, Rob. And after this, we're going to do our group Q&A session. So, yeah.
When it gets dark, you put your eyes on the street, you go back and forth. How many two cars? I'm serious. I can see people. I don't know why. It might have to be saying it about this. I don't really know. You'll know what I do when you do it. Are you leaving? Yeah, I'm gonna go home. Alright. Yeah. By the way, I got dynamic lighting to work. Yeah? Nice. Yep. Oh, put it on. He really lost it. Plus the work you did. No, but I'm curious. If you can't see it, then maybe I'm just insane. But I think you might have these in here.
So I didn't have time to create a full unique presentation, which is what I usually prefer to do. So when I kind of do presentation, so I stole this from another talk that I did. So hopefully it's relevant or interesting to you guys. If not, you can yell at me and say get off the stage or whatever. Yeah, thank you. I know you do that. So I think I know a few of you have come out to IGA or Indie Society meetings. I'm there a fair bit, so if you've seen either of those, feel free to come up and say hi. So as it says there, I'm one of the co-founders of Get Set Games. We make games on mainly iPhone and Android, although we are looking at other titles, but those are our main kind of platforms. So I'm going to cover a bit about us as a company, what we've accomplished, some of the clients and projects that we've worked on, and where we're going in the future. So a bit about us as a company. Started in 2009, officially as a company in Canada. Our first big title was Mega Jump. Hopefully a bunch of you have played. Has about 26 million downloads on iPhone right now. Across iPhone and Android, I think it's more around 40 million. Although generally when we were starting out, Android was kind of, how do you describe it? Kind of a brother or like child who's like not giving enough attention. That's kind of how we thought of it. What's that? Yeah, exactly. So that has changed a lot. People are buying more and more Android phones, and companies like Samsung are putting in a huge effort into making it more of a platform. So it is becoming much more of a thing. As a comparison, I'm curious, how many of you guys have Android phones? No. There, so clearly it is a thing. We concentrated on iPhone initially because people generally spend more money on iPhone than they do on Android. How many of you spend money on Android? On an actual game or application? How many of you spend money on iPhone? Or have spent money on iPhone? Oh. I thought it'd be more slanted, but generally I think it is still the case. People still spend more money in iTunes iOS App Store market. So that's something that I think is changing over time. But currently that's stats that we were saying. What was that?
I think it's just maybe
it is that as well. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about that actually. So yeah, Mega Jump, our first big title, came out in 2010. We did it was initially paid when it came out for 99 cents, and there was a company at the time called OpenClean, if you call the iPhone market at all. And they offered like a leaderboard achievement solution before there was something like that in the marketplace. Apple didn't have Game Center, so there was literally nothing there. And they had a promotion called Free Game of the Day, which we did that promotion with them twice. Once in Mega Jump launched in May of 2010, we did a promotion in June or July, and we did another promotion in September. And both those weekends we set the game free, so we did it on a weekend and had about 1 million downloads in each of those free weekends. So at that point we're kind of like, hey, why don't we just leave our game free? And this was kind of before games were, there was a whole like freemium thing going on. But a lot of it just came down to the numbers. We set it free, and we were seeing at about that time 50, 60,000 downloads a day after that second free weekend in 2010. So it was pretty hard to argue with that. So it's been that way ever since. The most downloads we had for Mega Jump, 400 and 1,000, which was on one of those open free game of the day promotions. So that's gone exceptionally well. And then the kind of unofficial follow-up to Mega Jump, Mega Run, launched last year in May as well. Now it has about 12.4 million downloads, so it's been going exceptionally well as well. And we had the highest number of downloads for any of our games in a single day, which was 760,000 on the iOS market. So we're obviously very ecstatic about that. So other projects that we worked on, we did a project in December when Disney did a reboot of the Monsters Inc. movie in 3D, because everyone's doing 3D. That was one of the things over the holiday period. They approached us last year and said, hey, why don't you take one of your existing games and convert it to Monsters Inc. game? And we weren't really in the habit of doing client work. We started our company as a company for us wanting to make games. I think most people do. but it is kind of hard to turn down being associated with a brand as strong as Disney and Pixar, just for the company. It was a really great partnership, and they've actually been very good to work with. So that has right now about 350,000 downloads. I think that's changed because, much like for Mega Jump, it was charged at $1, and then we did a free weekend promotion. I don't know what the numbers are fully now, but if you're interested, you can come contact me later. I'll look it up for you. And across all of our titles, this was a recent achievement a couple weeks ago. We recently passed 50 million downloads. That's all of our games across iOS, Android. We even had a short-lived period on Symbian platform. If anyone even knows or remembers what Symbian is, it was a thing, and then Nokia just like basically killed it. And it was not fun to be on our platform, so that's kind of a separate story. But if you want to hear about that, you can talk to me later about that. So some stats around. If you aren't following the mobile market too much, just some general stats. It is a pretty big thing. People spend money on it. So these are some of the stats around that that I picked up from various websites. 410 million iOS devices, almost 500,000 Android devices. Of course, that grows every day, every week. It gets larger. How many of you guys know the company Supercell or the games like Heyday and Clash of Clans? Maybe even play some of them. Those guys make $1 million a day with those two games, and it's not hard to see why if you've played any of those games. They do kind of push you down the freemium funnel of pay to complete something quickly or get a new item or this and that. As crazy as it might seem to myself and many others, people actually pay for that stuff. So as a business, you have to look at it and say, hey, maybe there's something there that we can do. And of course, Temple Run 2 as another really big game launched, I guess a couple months ago now, had the highest number of downloads over the course of 2 weeks. Or sorry, no, they reached 50 million the quickest of, I think, any mobile game, at least on iOS or Android, in the history of those two app stores. Previously was Angry Birds Space, which reached it in 35 days. So obviously that's just going to get more and more. People are going to download more and more games. So yeah, on to if any of you guys are making mobile games. I'm curious if anyone's actually doing that in their spare time or
making what games?
Trying to, yeah. Yeah, it's not easy. There's a lot of options, and of course, making the game is kind of the easy part in a lot of ways because really anyone can make a game. I think the harder part of it is getting it out there and getting it noticed. There's just so many good games out on, say, iOS and Android app stores, which are fantastic, but they never see the top of the charts. I think there's a lot more that developers can do in general, and I'm happy to talk about. I have a few things here I'll run through, but I'm happy to talk about that more in depth. If you guys are interested, come and talk to me, and I'll tell you what we've been doing and the partners that we work with to try and get noticed. So some big things revolving around that is to always provide new content and new features. Is actually something that Nathan talked about in his talk. Is having a game as a service. So you're constantly updating it, constantly providing new content. You really have to do that, especially in the mobile space. The binary updates are a big one, especially on your iPhone. For those of you that had an iPhone, I don't even know if it's an equivalent on Android because I don't use Android. But when there's an update for a game or an application, you'll get like pop-ups for like your updates on the iPhone to let you know that there's something new. I think a lot of people will just click on like an update all when they see that. But the fact that they're updating is a re-engagement and gets them coming back to your game or to your application. It's a really good way to get people back into your game. As an example, for Mega Jump and Mega Run, when we do an update, we generally see on the first couple days, a couple million people will update. Probably about 500,000 people will update in a single day, and then it just slowly tapers off. But it's usually quite high. People do at least update. It's not a guarantee that they'll actually start your game after they've updated, but obviously a small percentage of people will do that. It's always, depending on whatever you're talking about, it's always kind of like a percentage of a percentage. certain number of people will install your game, and then a small percentage of people may not even play your game. And that's dependent on a lot of things, but obviously a certain number of them will, and also a certain number of people will actually pay for things in your game, but of course not all of them will. So some other things that will help you in updates and promotions, cross-promoting with other developers. Really just reaching out, that's what we've done with a lot of developers that have similar games to us, just emailing them and say, hey, would you like to cross-promote? We'll have like a pop-up in our game for your game. You do the same, and a lot of developers are amicable to that, as long as it's related to your game. I think it makes great sense. So we've actually worked with Amandu Studios who made Temple Run, and Nimblebit, who've done games like Tiny Tower, Pocket Planes, and their new one just came out. I can't remember the name. Nimble Quest. That's it. Of course, I mentioned earlier OpenFrame, which is now, they got bought out by a Japanese company, Free. So if you're looking in the mobile space, that's how you'll see them at. I don't think they have a free game of the day currently, but they do partner with developers, and they have a developer program, so that's something that you guys can look at if you're interested. Captain and Chart Boost are other ones. They're more monetization type things. Having well-placed, I want to say well-placed pop-ups. I don't want to call them ads because I don't think it's as sinister as ads, which I'm not a fan of. But placing, basically for Chart Boost as an example, is basically an advertisement for another game. So you might think it counterintuitive if you're promoting someone else's game in your game, that it pulls them away from your game, cannibalizing some of your activity, but it's actually pretty commonplace, and companies like Chart Boost will actually incentivize that. So developers and advertisers will actually come to Chart Boost and pay them money, and then when they click on that title in your game, you actually get a cut of that. So it actually incentivizes really well, and you actually get pretty good return on investment as a company. Other things which are pretty commonplace in the mobile space is video ads, and we don't stick this in front of players. It's completely optional, but we are a freemium game for whatever that means exactly. We can talk about that. But we have incentivized video ads in the game. So you watch a video and you get some currency that you can spend in the game. Those are some of the companies that do that. Flurry is a pretty big one. Ad Colony and Bungle are less so. But it's the same sort of thing. Watch a video, get some currency. And of course, the ultimate one, which everyone strives for, and nobody knows how you get it. I couldn't even tell you how you get these from Apple. Editor's Choice and specialized categories that they have. So on the iPhone market, they have these what is it? Special categories for things like platformers, or they have like games made in Canada for like the Canadian App Store, and sometimes they're really stupid. I'm trying to think of like some of the stupid ones they come up with. I don't know how they come up with it. I don't know how they structure the App Store. Don't ask me how they do it, because we totally wish we knew. It's like a mystery. I have considered them like the Wizard of Oz. They're basically just like a black box. They give you the tools to make everything, and then it's kind of like up to you how to take advantage of that. We struggle with that actually every day. Even we actually have contacts at Apple, but even sometimes they don't know. They tell us like we don't know how that works. It's ridiculous. So this is maybe something not as relevant, but kind of, I guess until you have kind of like a larger title, borrowing from another presentation, but talking about different regions in the world. Your games may be more popular in some parts of the world than others. Obviously, the US market is huge. Basically, in terms of downloads, we'll have the US and the rest of the world. That's kind of the scale of the downloads that we see. There's just no comparison. Although Canada is quite good as well, so that's great to see. Yeah, just some general stats about the different areas in the world. In October last year, Japan surpassed the US in terms of how much people spend on the Google Play App Store. So the US has been a leader, like I was saying, in terms of spending on pretty much every mobile market. So now Japan has surpassed that actually. Surpassed the US on the Android space, but probably still on the iPhone market. It's still with the US, so I'm sure that will change over time as well. localization is definitely a big thing. We've gone to various conferences, WWDC being a big one, which is Apple's big developer conference, which they have every year. Which is arcane how they announce tickets. They'll basically say, like a week before the conference, hey, tickets are available, and they don't even tell their own employees. So we've heard that from Apple employees. They don't tell them. So it's basically, if you're in the wrong time zone, you could be asleep, and you won't have any idea that they've launched tickets. And then they sell out in half an hour, so it's kind of like you're out of luck. And it's not cheap either. It's $1,600, I think, a ticket. So it's ridiculous. Apple is a ridiculous company. So talking about localization, at a conference like WWDC, they mentioned that a lot of applications and games don't localize for other languages. It's mainly been in English, and of course that is a big one, but big is what there's different languages in the world, and there's a lot of people that speak those languages. I think actually, like per capita, it's English is actually one of the least taught languages in the world. If you map out the ratio of population to what languages are spoken. Of course, all the English-speaking countries generally have more money to spend. But that is something to look at if you're looking at time in the mobile space. It really is a great way to get distinguished and get noticed. And these are some of the companies that work in different regions, specifically in China, Yoda One, the Nine, and Adrian Sky, which all have kind of strange names in my opinion, but it works. And I think you were mentioning how the way people spend, is different in other parts of the world.
There's also different monetization strategies.
Exactly. It's quite different, and especially in some of the Asian countries. We've actually just partnered with that first campaign I have in the list, Yoda One, to take advantage of some of those things, monetizations in the Chinese market, because of the way people spend money in China. It's quite different from how they spend it in North America. So that's something to look at as well. And I think that's just a few conclusions of everything that I've kind of covered. Take a look at the regional markets. Don't just look at the US and Canada, although they are very important. They can really help you get noticed to look at the Asian markets, which are really gaining a lot of steam. Do cross promotions, updates, very important. And some of those promotional marketing tools I mentioned, Chart Boost, Flurry Bundle, and that only really help as well to get noticed. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Rob is also a former Ryerson graduate as well. So.
Yes. Yeah, for computer science. So all my classes were basically here, like on this floor. So.
Next, I'd like to have all four of our guests who are currently here to sit down at the front, and we'd love to have a Q&A. So if anybody has any sort of questions for all of them, or certainly one of these guys, can you direct your question now?
Still going.
Roger Ebert has done. Oh. Minecraft has hit 10 million sales. Keep us busy. So we'll start probably from the front row, I guess, since I sort of missed who put their hands up first. Go ahead.
Sure. About a year ago, I listened to a speaker from Shields College, and he said that selling video games in an Intel store won't exist anymore. In 5 years, you'll just buy digital content off the net. What do you think?
Anyone want to speak to that? Anyone else? I think you're going to hear something about the net.
I think it's actually a weird idea. If you think about like how many movies or how many TV shows or how many books there are in the world, and you think about the rate at which hard drive capacity and memory capacity is increasing, that in about 2.5 to 3 years, you're going to have every single movie ever made on one hard drive, and it creates a new piracy. And you can replicate everything. What do you do then? You know, the way this is a new IP, add question, or because it's a weird question?
Yeah, it won't go away completely. One compelling thing that I had someone tell me, because I kind of thought the same thing, that it will disappear. But again, talking about other regions in the world, there's a lot of people that can't afford a device that can contain that. Obviously, we'll get like cheaper and cheaper. Probably there'll be like a crossover, but probably like say someone in the desert who doesn't like have a need for like an iPhone or like a more like PC oriented device may need or want that physical media.
Maybe just like broadband or something like that. The regions haven't adapted to it.
Exactly.
If you go back to dial-up.
However, looking at the game development, this whole digital download thing has really opened up opportunities and doors, because I mean, to get a physical product out of the stores, you need a whole other consideration and arm, and that's why publishing used to have a stranglehold on the industry, because you needed the guy who was able to like print a big pile of discs for you. Since you don't need that anymore, it's wild west now. You get those cowboys, so it's a good thing for you.
So what I'm curious about is, if you're a developer of video games, what kind of softwares could you use that could be ported to something like for PSN Network or for Xbox Live Arcade? Let's see, like if you worked on Flash, is there any way you could transponse this, or can you copy any of your code over to a different language that it makes better support?
Yeah, if you're using AS3, you can use Scaleform. So what it is a wrapper that takes your vectors and turns them into, is it OpenGL? Just like triangles, so it creates geometry out of your vectors. So that's one thing you can use. You can use HAXE, which is HAXE, which is a separate language, open source language that is Acron-based, or a lot like ActionScript, and it's really interesting because it can deploy to a number of different compile targets, including C++. You can go to web, you can go to iOS, you can go to Android. This is why I fight with Rob about junk technology, because these guys are using Objective-C exclusively, and then we get into trouble with, we had to get people to port and other people. I don't know why. Like, I'm really confused. Who's using Objective-C and like Objective-C exclusively? Good group of people. So get out right now. I mean, it's to me, and we can fight, but that's a crazy idea. I don't know why you would ever go with a technology that can only target one platform. Right?
There's no fight. That's actually a problem that we like struggle with, and like when we're looking for our next platforms. It's again when I was kind of saying that like Android is like a black sheep. It's getting harder and harder to ignore it.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't think you can anymore. Really being able to deploy across like all platforms is really important.
Unity, X, Loom, Ogre, OpenGL,
Model game as well.
Model game?
Completely cross-platform.
Cool, awesome.
So after we get this all down, like
That's what my talk was supposed to be about. I'm so sorry that we didn't do that one, but yeah. And these guys know a bunch more than I know.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, for the guys that are developing games, like, obviously you have a lot of ideas, but how do you decide, aside from what you would actually want to play, what to go through and develop?
I guess it's easier for you. It's just whatever you want to do.
Yeah, but you guys are making money. That's the difference. Right?
Well, like there is like everyone has like a billion game ideas. It is really hard to decide, and it's really hard to know like what idea is better than any others. Unfortunately, a lot of it is kind of like driven by the market. I mean, for our games like Mega Jump and Mega Run, like Mega Jump was basically we looked at like Doodle Jump, which was huge, and we're like we could make that way better. And that was kind of the approach that we took or have taken for a lot of our games. And certainly like anyone can do it. I mean, there's a ton of great games out there, and then you'll get them and you'll download them and be like, oh man, this is garbage, why did they do that? Or why didn't they have this? Or it'll be like all these features. Like it's a great game on its own. There's always that extension of wanting something more. And I think it is a good way to look at games. I mean, I want it to be the whole like driving thing of just like take someone else's game and like copy it. It kind of sounds like that, but I think there's more involved than that, like explore other avenues and ideas and integrate them into that similar genre.
These two guys are the smartest guys in the room, because business meets a need. right? You alluded to this when you were talking about doing the architectural viz, and you came in thinking that you'd addressed a need, but it wasn't the need of the people who were paying you, it was the need of this end user who wasn't going to pay you, right? So business meets a need, and in games, if you can put your creative preciousness aside, which I can't do, then you identify a need, right? And so this is what Rob and Getz said. They saw a game like Beetle Jump that looks like Axe. It plays really nicely, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's quirky, but it looks like Axe. These guys, one of their major strengths is have you seen Mega Run and Mega Jump? Slick, right? So they identified a need where they're fun games to play, but they could look a lot better, and they cranked that bar right up. It didn't really raise your
Sorry,
bar.
and no criticism on you personally, but like another thing that they do is like their sound design is amazing. So that kind of brings it all to that same level where like there's like when I'm playing a game like Mega Jump or like Mega Run, it's not like I'm not really like yearning for anything. And no offense, but like I think you're doing it yourself probably.
What's that?
I said I think you're probably doing it yourself, which is why it sounds.
My sound?
Yeah.
Are we talking about the very first game I ever made that I showed you from?
No. I've played a bunch of stuff. Sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah. The sound, no, actually, a lot of my clients say they won't let me do sound. They say we're going to do sound ourselves, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. And they put this is the other thing they want to do game design themselves too. So when you look at the stuff that's on my site, don't think that that's necessarily me. I mean, I had one client. This is a famous story. One client called me up and said, we're going to be sending over a game design document. They treat me like the big dumb technological stick to just get at a problem. So they treat me a lot like a web developer, right? And they don't realize that games are artistic artifacts, right? And you cannot pour your soul, or I pour my soul into them. So they said, we're sending over a GDP. And their game design document was, they were sitting around in a boardroom drawing on a whiteboard. And then they photographed the whiteboard, put it in a PDF, and sent it to me. So this is what I'm, when I say I'd like to, transition to a product company, the stuff you see on the site that's based on service, I'm always really sort of careful to say, like, working from designs by client X and from provided assets and sounds from client Y, so I try to frame it like that. Spoilery, man, that's all me.
Yeah. I was actually just kind of curious about the business aspect. Have you guys actually, for mobile games, have you noticed any specific trends that actually get people to draw in more?
In our case, we're finding that everybody's trying to add gesture recognition to the mobile market. And I can tell you that a lot of every key player in the mobile market now is embracing the addition of gesture platforms. So they're scooping up gesture companies like crazy. So Qualcomm makes chips for cell phones. They bought out gesture tech, and they took all their IP and they're really desperately trying to put some way to add gesture recognition, but no one's got it. So that's what's like.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that question.
I was just wondering, basically the idea is, like for mobile games, like have you noticed any specific trends that have drawn more audience? Like, just, I guess money-wise, like people who would actually be willing to put money into it. Like
people spending
the
game or like investment into
like spending money, like maybe you get like a cool sword if you that you couldn't get until level 20, but you put $1 in and you can get it right now.
Yeah, ridiculous trends. We try to understand why people spend money on them, but they do. Like trading card type games.
Yeah, and like those Facebook games you see all the time.
It's ridiculous. You can play something and you don't even have to look at the screen. You just tap it. The screen, there's like a prompt for user interaction.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like have you noticed any specific trends of like what has been doing really well out of all of those?
Yeah, that one. Would you say also that functional items over cosmetic items, depending on the audience, tend to sell better? So if you use it in the game, if it's consumable, so that means you don't just buy it once and have it forever, but it breaks. It'll make people buy it.
I don't know. I don't even know if that's the truth. I've had all my dreams shattered by some of these games. the trading card ones, it's like Rage of Bahamut is like one, and Legend of the Cryptids. Just like games like these have some kind of like cool artwork, but again, you don't even have to. There's no interaction. You just tap the screen.
Yeah, I try to avoid a lot of these games. The one I really liked for a while was like the Camelot one, and you build like castle and everything in your town, and there was a Dragon Age game for a while.
You should try them. try them just to be like, why is this popular?
I think there's what we've learned in a lot of the work we're doing is what we call, or what we try to source out as an MVP, so a minimally viable product. And what happens is instead of building your dream, you look at what the core essence is to make it consumable. And you'll find more often than not, especially if you're like profitable and make money what you're doing, you can often do a fraction of what you needed to do, thought you needed to do, and earn the same money, or you go all the way and try to make this incredible thing and make the exact same money.
Well,
so
the way I've been seeing it, I know one of my friends working with is make something small that will sell well. You actually have the funds to actually make something better.
This sort of has two questions. One's mainly for you, that works at ARB, with gesture-based things. Yes, with your snazzy lab coat. And then the other one is mainly for you, Rob, about your Mega Jump, I think it was. I haven't played it, but from what I've heard, it sounds like it's a sort of dual jump, like exponential, like 211 or whatever. And my main question is, how do you get around businesses saying, hey, that was my idea? Like, I understand in the gaming industry, like, you can't really do that in the sense that it's like, I made first-person shooters because I made Doom, there go, no one else can make first-person shooters. Like, that just doesn't work. But then you run into things like...
you can patent.
Yeah, you can try,
Yeah.
but then the industry is just sort of like, really? Like, you're going to try to patent first-person shooters? It doesn't seem like it works out that well in the long run.
It does for those who have the money.
Yes, for those that can take the time.
The ghost racer, in a racing game, you have a ghost of like an image of
Yeah.
the past thing. That's patented. You can't use that. Crazy Taxi, you got an arrow pointing to where you're going to go. You can't use that.
So
that's patented.
My main thing was, I think it was a game called Joust for the PlayStation Move with the controller, and you tried to keep it still while you were trying to make your friend move. And then another company took that idea and put it to the mobile device, Android and iOS, and then they got into a lot of hot water because they supposedly didn't have the rights to make that, and then they were told by like 5 people that they could. And then everybody was just sort of like, I don't know what's going on anymore, and it seemed to fall into a hole of like, no one wants to take responsibility for
They
it.
got into hot water because the good fabric pulled a crybaby.
I don't, all I know is that I saw like the main thing, and then I was just sort of like, oh, and then I never really heard anything else about it. And I was just wondering, how do you go about sort of making these iterative titles that are obviously based on something, but not getting into hot water with those people that you're basing it off of?
Yeah, I don't know if there's an easy answer there.
Sure there is. Fuck them. Seriously. You want to clone a game that's not patented? Fuck them. Clone the game. Because especially when you're just starting out, make whatever game you possibly can. Clone a game. Don't clone Tetris. They'll sue your ass. Make whatever you want and make something functional. And like the Goof Fabric, that was a social pressure thing. That wasn't a legal thing. With Spry Fox, if you remember, Triple Town and Yeti Town, that was a legal thing. So they got sued, but Spry Fox has deep enough pockets, right? But if just you can't trademark, or sorry, you can patent game mechanics. It's not often done, but you can't trademark that stuff. So if you want to be evil, go ahead and be evil. You might not be well loved for it. Ridiculous Fishing is another thing. What was the Radical Fishing?
Ninja Fishing.
Ninja Fishing, which by some accounts is a better game than Ridiculous Fishing. Yeah, well, everything's arguable.
Well, how do you guys feel about like the Farmville people that are like apparently stealing a lot of games?
They're stealing out of games and wiping their tears with $100 bills. they used to.
And so and now my other thing is, I was watching extra credits, and when you were talking about the Kinect and how it can be used for things, I've seen the tech demos, so we know that it can be used for these really cool, precise motion tracking controls, but you never see it actually in a game. Like Star Wars Kinect, the best part of that was the reskin of Dance Central, which isn't really a game. You're doing things on,
I find the dance games are the closest in terms of motions, right?
Exactly.
You're totally right. There's very few great examples. I just saw there's a tank game that's eluding me right now. terms of when you could actually stand up
Yeah.
and like hold the
As an Iron Barrage or something? Yeah, yeah. Brigade, Iron Brigade? Yeah.
And that was a great example of gesture recognition
Yeah.
in the game. You were talking about the patents. Here's a frivolous patent that we patented. we put in all the applications, so let's see if we get it. And I can talk about it now. But we tried to patent eye tracking for multiple users because we saw that the patents only include single user. So we put in all the legal Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
All 4 people would have different tracking perspectives, so you couldn't cheat because every one of their views would be distorted because of what we were saying. So we thought, okay, this is an awesome idea. And then as soon as they realized they want 2-player games, they fringe on the patent every single. And they're so pumped on that idea.
So I guess my thing is like, you're able to do this stuff, but what's preventing developers from taking your stuff that you have that, because it looks like they haven't done it yet, but they might be doing that in the future. And because you have that stuff, like what you're showing, you have the recognition, and it seems like.
And the recognition is like 2 years old.
Yeah.
There was so long when we couldn't even talk about the stuff we have. Like I have 3 armies of lawyers that just obsessively like get freaked out about every polygon I make because of all the stuff that we have in the back end. Plus the security stuff we can. Like,
oh yeah, no.
We don't even want to know. Like, we don't want people to know which patent is the one that refers to the security documents. So we have so many redundant algorithms that at least one of them is the one that is the one that's exclusively used by security. We just hope nobody figures out which one that is. So yeah.
So it's just wait and see people to pick up the new technology and make gesture-based games better.
Make it better. Can you just say like he who executes wins? I was at the Level Up show last night. There was a game there that had the exact same mechanic as Spalier. The game I've been working 5 years to build. But you know what? They're a couple of students. They can't touch the amount of love and blood I'm going to pour into promoting this thing. Next Tuesday, pre-order campaign begins. So he who executes wins. So what do you say that it doesn't matter who rips you off, it matters who rips off who better. You know?
It protects themselves the most.
Yeah, sure.
Right now the laws change, so it's first to file has the defense, and it just changes the rules. So
Unless is it still for UK?
It's in the US. Only in the
Yeah,
US.
yeah, US.
Yeah.
And most people patent through there, and then we make sure that all of our patents are all international patents. So we do this little, it's a bit of a sneaky thing where we don't declare what region we claim, but we've got like 5 years to claim that region. We're like, oh, by the way, sorry, Icelandic company that's doing successfully well. Did you know that was the region we love so much?
We had a question waiting back there.
Could I quickly interject because the whole big thing is free, like little free games. See, do you find that that's the beneficial thing? Like, what if they really never do pay for anything in the aftermarket? Like, is it still a good thing to you, just that they aren't paying it at all, or?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. It still furthers your brand and like your name in some fashion. I don't know how you quantify that exactly.
Well,
it's probably formula.
Also, what you said earlier is it's that percentage of a percentage. So
yeah.
You have 1 million people playing your game. If 1% of them spend $1 in your game, that's still, however much money you wouldn't have had that you now have.
Yeah, it's like I think it's like 1 to 3% of people pay.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in actually putting my game up on Pirate Bay
before
that launch. Yeah, I want to because more people playing the game. The other thing I've done is I've opened it up, the back end, so when you get the alpha on Tuesday, you can change all the scripting of the game, so you can make the characters walk around and say whatever you want them to say. Just kind of like hanging them out there to dangle, but and then people can be able to record that and put it up on YouTube. So there's a huge potential there for them to make characters say stuff that I would never let them say.
R-rated game.
That's cool, right? Like I'm little, I'm not ESO, so I'm gonna let that happen and just see where that goes.
You guys wanna add?
I had an injection for the previous topic on copying other games and stuff like that. Follow the same model that the Passion industry does. There is no copyright in Passion. It's too utilitarian to actually copyright, therefore you make a better product. And that's it.
Any more
I have
questions?
some funny patents. When we're forming our patents, we always presume that Microsoft is going to sue us. So we always presume that, and then one day I got a cease and desist letter from Microsoft, and it started a pranking war. It was not a real cease and desist letter, but because we have lawyers in house, they made a prank cease and desist from Microsoft. And the game now became in house. Who could get who to bitch out and call their lawyer? That was I calmly read the letter, and then within 28 seconds, I was on the phone with the lawyers. But 28 seconds doesn't beat. So, yeah.
Can I tell my trademark story then?
Yeah.
Okay, so my trademark story is we were working on this game called Cahoots in modeling play, like it was all like stop motion, and we had like a stealth name for it that we called Fingerprints. I didn't realize the whole point of a stealth name was because you were securing trademark in the background. You didn't want to release the actual name because I'm dumb. And it was very new. So we were 4 months into development on this. I dumped maybe 40 grand on the thing, and I put up this announcement thing that said, hey, guess what? We're working on this. The game that we've been working on called Fingerprints is called Cahoots with a K. Very shortly after that, I got this email from this small team in the UK, this indie team, that said, hey, we see you're working on a game called Cahoots in Clay. We're working on a game called Cahoots in Clay. What the hell? Like, it's this crazy zeitgeist weirdo thing. And so, like you, it was just like, I wrote him back and I'm like, oh. And sent that email to him, and then lawyer, right? Immediately picked up the phone and like, what do I do? And he said, like, oh, trademark, it's first to file. Have they filed yet? I'm like, I don't know. And he's giving me all sorts of bad information. Anyway, what happened was, when you file for trademark, you got to let that hang for like a year for people to object to it or to contest it, right? And you also have to pick a region. It was what region? I'm like, the internet. what country? I said, the world. You don't have the internet. He goes, well, you got to pick a country. I said, well, I mean, I can't pick a country. And he says, well, law has not caught up to that concept of worldwide distribution. Pick a country. I said, what does it cost to do it in the U.S.? He said, $4,000. I said, what does it cost to do it in Canada? He said, $800. Canada it is. So. The whole time that we left that dangling out there, the other company released their game on the web, and then they released their game on the PSP on the go, and then then PSN put it on PlayStation put it on the PS Network, right? And then they came up for iOS, and then I get a letter from Canadian Trademark Office saying, hey, congrats, the name's all yours. So their game was bloody well everywhere. So I had the choice of then saying, hey, any buck you've ever made in Canada under that name is now ours, and you're calling it a game something different outside of Canada, and just the whole net. Or I could just change the stupid name, which is what I should have done. I have a story.
Any other questions?
How many guys up there have heard of Oculus Rift, and how do you think it can change the future of gaming experiences? So, big question.
What did you tell him?
I thought the concept was awesome. I've said that it's not a 1080p version of the beta test.
Yeah, I've heard
I would
it's
be
not
happy to pre-order the just but it's not. I'm excited to see the final commercial version. It looks amazing. I love that head tracking effect. If you've never had your head tracked as you move around 360, you really have an experience to play game. And we try to create knockoff versions of that effect in some of our other solutions. But at Ryerson, we have a cave, and that's what I first saw this. And it really does well. It's extremely intense. You get a really great vertical effect, and that's why the product's awesome. It's very affordable. Sony has something really close to that. Like Sony's head-mounted thing, really high resolutions, great frame rates. I think it's missing the head tracking component of the portions.
It's 2x 640 though, if that helps.
Yeah, I talked to people last week at GDC, they were lining up to test the thing, and one of the complaints I heard is even when they could see pixels, right? And even when they go to 1080p, it's like your whole spectrum of vision, so even that's kind of feel too small.
Yeah, because you're so close to this.
Yeah. But I mean, there's also the thing that you can get where you wear a baseball cap and you can hang your phone off the end of it. Almost, it's $16.95. You can get on
Good questions.
I wanted to ask about these and any major stumbling blocks that you advise on.
You got time. We have about 10-15 minutes for Q&A.
Do you want to hear good? Like, you want to give your biggest mistake kind of thing? Is that what you want to do?
Or you can tell the story about them.
I mean, I think it sounds like, I don't know your backgrounds, but I'm an artist by trade. I knew nothing about business when I started. I still pretty much know nothing about business. I just wear this jacket kind of. I started out in an incubator with a desk, and I went from there. And I think that my advice is to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. I think any of my success has come directly as a result of people around me. So I think that that is probably my most valuable piece of advice. It's very difficult to do it alone. There's so many aspects of the business and challenges in getting started. And so putting yourself around people that can help you do that, I think, would be success.
How do you find people?
You know, in this case here, it's a little against like Ryan's angle, which is, you know, try to be an artist and a programmer. My take is more, you know, be good at something and find other people that are good at something too. And so games have always been a challenging market because they are both a programming prototyping environment, which sucks. Prototyping is always 10 times harder than you think, 10 times more expensive. And then also an art world, which is very difficult because you hire artists, you train them to do what you need them to do, and then for half the production they're done. And so it's a very expensive game, and I don't think any studio has really fully cracked that unless they can keep this thing churning. It's almost like a Ponzi scheme. You need to bring in the next one, then the next one, then the next one to keep everybody busy. So that is the challenge. But I do think that specialization has really emerged as game quality has improved. You know, sound design, graphics, physics, all of these different things. So a core team of those members. So if it were me, it would be 3 people that I think you need. I think you need a programmer, an artist, and a business. That's the 3 people you need. You need somebody who can do really nice artwork. Sorry, my throat is dry. A programmer that can make the programming happen, and somebody who knows how to get it out there.
Where's the market writer?
And a writer.
Go home, writers.
So I'm an artist too, but I mean, like,
counterpoint to that, when I see these panels all the time, one of the things that comes up a lot is hire very slowly and fire very quickly, right? And I disobeyed that to my peril. But you said that.
Thanks so much.
I forget what you even said. What was it you said?
I don't know.
That was yeah. Geez. Oh yeah. So you said that you have to know the needs of the people who are paying you. So when you said you get programmer and artist together, so I was the programmer on the team, and I thought, oh, I'll hire my friend from Forest and he'll be the artist, and that'll make a nice little team. But I wasn't listening to what my clients wanted, so I hired this guy, and he just started eating money because and so my client at the time said, they give me a game project, and I said, great, we'll get so and so to do the art for it. I'm like, oh, yeah, we'll take care of the art. We're talking about my sound, right? We'll take care of the art. I said, okay, cool. So then what they did was, I was paying this guy really well, and he was a really good artist. They went and hired some girl out of Sheridan and paid her $12 an hour, $12.51 or whatever, like a penny over minimum. And she started doing the art on their team, and I was doing the programming. What ended up happening was she didn't understand Flash. I was done because I charged them a flat rate, and I said, look, I got to cash out and be out of this. And the programming is all done. My piece is done. She just has to take it and put her assets in the game and implement it. So we're like, okay. So then she screwed that up, and the game was broken, and they were out of money, so they couldn't pay me to fix the game. Although what I supplied to them was working at the time, months prior. So because it was government funded and it was a game, check, they launched it with it. So then, since my guy was eating money the entire time, I had to fire him. So I didn't listen to my clients and what their needs were, and I made that hiring mistake. So yeah,
Hard lessons learned.
Yeah, man.
It's still hard knocks out there.
Yeah, I think it's actually I had to fire a really close friend early on, and I felt guilty. The biggest regret I had was that in hindsight, that I didn't do it. I was stupid. I was trying on. I let it go completely away and assets, and it was very early on years ago. And I felt so happy after I saw him. And later that day, I was just, I was a little stressed. I realized that the stress is a big deal.
So now would you say don't hire friends? Because that's another rule that I've established.
Really hire the best.
Right.
I find that designers are so valuable. If you're great designing user interfaces, please talk to me. I love designers. They really sell the product. At the we didn't go over a lot of proposals and learning to sell. So I think that was great. I've had a lot of experience with all different companies, and the first batch were always kind of sketchy. I've learned that the less sketchy the business was actually the better deal. You make people money when you talk about it. You get tons of tax credits, tons of funding opportunities, grants become available to you. Do not create a business out of grants. I really don't recommend it. We became profitable before we ever took on any grants because what we're getting paid to do, we're just collecting my money and piecing it away.
But numerous businesses in Toronto exist entirely on those grant structures.
Oh,
if the grants didn't exist, they wouldn't exist. Most of your TV that you watch, for example. Yeah. Rob, what's the lesson?
I think, well, yeah, it depends. I think a good lesson was if you're doing things like on your own, or in comparison to like a larger group. Like when I started with the guys that I know, there's 4 of us. 2 of us are developers, of which I'm one, and the other 2 are artists. So again, like we didn't have any like biz dev or like marketing in the aspect of that. It's just kind of like it needs to be done. So I guess one of us is going to do it. But the kind of the hard part of having a larger group is right now we've kind of made decisions by vote. Everyone, if we're going to make a big decision as a company, everyone has to agree, which is good and bad. And we've missed and kind of like we've missed a lot of good opportunities because we just didn't make the decision quick enough. Someone disagreed, and it was kind of like a really strong disagreement, and everyone was like, oh, I don't want to talk to that guy because everyone knows how he feels. It's just like, it's just gonna make me mad if I talk to him about it. And eventually, like, you have to broach those subjects anyways. You kind of have to separate it of like the personal and kind of business aspects of it. I don't know if there's any advice
So
there.
no
Just
one on
kind
your
of
team has veto power?
currently no.
Wow.
Yeah.
A
So.
lot of people do that. So, like, if they're a chief in my company, they have veto rights. So, chief people officer has veto over me. I use something strict that I put in there that, let's say my chief financial officer, he just calls veto. It's not, I don't even bother arguing. He knows exactly what he's doing. There's a reason why he's an expert at this. Such amazing work. Same thing with the chief people officer. If he vetoes something, frankly, they almost never, ever use the veto. Maybe they'll use one a year, and it's done.
Like the president. Would you recommend that for Rob?
It can make things easier.
I like not having to always be in charge, but everybody is their boss to some degree, and they take responsibility for their own work. When I give them kind of this power, over me, I find that my results are better. It's not going to really be better.
We have time for one last question.
We'll move out into the hall afterwards if you want to keep talking with them, but we just need
The back alley, come on!
yeah, one last question, because we have to leave soon.
I don't know if it was. You reminded me of when you said TED Talks earlier.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering what you guys thought of the term gamification and the idea of like, I don't know if you guys know the term. How do you feel about it?
You guys just want to explain what gamification is to people who don't know?
So gamification is adding game-like elements to non-game tasks. So you brush your teeth and you get points somehow. The classic example is you go to a coffee shop and you get a card, and they stamp the card every single time you buy a coffee, and then when you buy the 10th coffee is free. So that's the earliest, air miles, the earliest gamification.
Charades was a gamification of us getting people to segment our data for us. That was it. We tried to take something that we really worried about. How can we get people to train for gesture? And it was like, well, we need 3 charades, and then we had to build that. And then we tried to rip off the actual game itself, just pick the exact topics. And we build off of that, and then just so we can
Sometimes it's worse. So there was that example that there was a gamified Google thing to help them tag images for Google search. So what you would do is you play against another person, who would show an image, and you, the other person, would be like typing a gazillion words describing the image. And anytime the two of you typed a word that matched, you got points. And that was so that they can then build that into their database so that whenever you type a word, the picture shows up in Google image search, right? So they got real people to sort of do that for them, really, really smart. but I read a recent article about, there's all these companies that are getting paid $1 bazillion to gamify other systems, like work. And what I read about this is that they are largely poorly implemented to the point where they kind of reward the most psychotic people on your team and reward behaviors you don't really want to encourage in a work environment, right? Because of the weird way they were implemented. So when implemented well, it's like communism. Communism is awesome when implemented correctly, but there's going to be pigs at that farm.
So I guess that's it. Let's see. How did you guys enjoy it? How did you guys enjoy checking
Skill swap tomorrow.
Yeah.
Skill swap tomorrow. It's who's that? Ryan has a Creighton is going to be talking about his UGAG's adventure game system. So reading in XML data and parsing that into your game system.
That's great. That's also another thing that the gaming units have partnered with recently, or anyway, we're glad that you guys love Checkpoint. We're hoping to have much more of these events in the future, but for now, I'd like to just talk about the people who helped me organize it, because I had to direct this event, and then I had my helpers and people between Game Makers Union, my club, and Gamer. So I just wanted to bring up Ian Distadis, which is the next year's president of the Game Makers Union, and Kevin Koo, which is the president of Gamer.
The majority of the work.
Thank you, Jordan, for organizing this event. It was awesome. Next year, we hope to do a bigger, better version. Maybe get 100 people.
Bigger room.
Let's push for 200. Sure. Game Makers Union would like to do all sorts of cool events. We're a Ryerson club, and we want to do, because half of you are not from Ryerson. That's okay. We invite everyone to come make games with us. We do game making jams, so 3-hour nights. We do longer making games. We want to put people together, artists and coders. That's why we're reaching out to connect with the community, because we don't have a game program at Ryerson yet, or a modeling program. So that's why we connect with George Brown and U of T and OCAD and so on. We're looking for people who want to help make games. We will be active over the summer. During this month, we will be on hiatus because exams, and we're all students. But we'll start again in May. We'll figure out some activities and post them online. Keep an eye out. Get a business card with our website.
Facebook.
Yeah, and we will meet again at 1st of September with orientation, and we'll hopefully have some prototype games to show at that point that have been completed. We'll have some ongoing product people to come on and join. We also do lessons on how to use Maya. Maybe we'll do Blender. We'll do Unity. It's our priorities. It's putting people together, building connections, getting connected with the community. Hopefully we will get some companies to sponsor us with some prizes, with some games. I've seen our peer group at U of T. They got iPad prizes from game companies, so I can't see why we can't either. Just for having games to give for good games.
You guys
So
have
that's-
iPads? I hemorrhage iPads wherever I walk, man. I got 9 in my pocket right now. I'm going to drop on the floor. Can I tell you? Ponycorns made $700, and with that $700, I bought 1 iPad. I developed it with a loaner iPad and a 30-day free trial. I'm not in a position, maybe these guys are.
And the last point I guess I'll make is like we're sort of becoming a network hub of activity in that we're affiliating with all those different groups. So, for example, I know what SkillSwap is. It's they meet on Friday nights. They teach skills. We have some members in the audience here who have done it before. Them teaching Blender, how to make games in the Blender environment, and you go there and you learn so much. And it's free to the public to come. And I sort of model what we do in our club off of SkillSwap because give some snacks, get some people to teach, give respect, make some jokes, all that kind of thing, like pizza nights and stuff.
You are desperate to say some words, Will. Yes.
I think you know what I'm going to say.
Oh, you want to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about your radio? Hold on. Let Kevin finish talking about gamer first.
You play video games.
We play video games and we advertise for events such as this one. We have reached across all universities and companies all over. And so please like our Facebook page. You'll be instantly updated with whatever we put up.
And if you're good at esports, come and find us.
So they posted some LAN parties. They posted some LAN parties for like Dota, League of Legends, StarCraft, and yeah. So basically their group plays the games, our group makes the games. Yes, Will, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, so this is just a quick me shamelessly self-promoting. I do a games and gaming radio station, and I'm trying to move it into a station idea with 24-hour content and all of that stuff. So if you're interested in doing gaming journalism or doing that on top of anything else that you're interested in, come find me and yeah, talk to me.
And I think that's it.
Well, no, there's one more thing.
All right.
I just want to give thanks to all the people who helped us, who helped make this event possible. The event, the guests who came in. We had Gamer and GMU. In fact, if you're from GMU or Gamer previously, stand up. Yep, there's Steve, and there's Zach, and Alex, and there's our former president, Victor, and Will. And as well, thanks to Rob Segal in the next room, who is supervising our event, as well as Renona Pringle for helping us get this room, and the co-op office and the Ryerson Career Center, because they were a big part in making this event possible. So.
And these guys here.
I'm getting to them. I just want to say that. And of course, these four guests, and five including Nathan. So everybody give them all a hand. We'd like to see you next year. If you guys want to keep updated with more gamer or gaming makers union stuff, talk to me or Ian or Kevin, and you can get your emails onto a newsletter. Otherwise, follow our Facebook group. We have business cards over there that'll help you get, and that'll show all the ways to contact us and keep in touch with us. And we will hopefully see you guys next year.
What about food?
We will
We're done.
We will harass you all for food.